After a grueling road trip, the Mets are back in New York and back at Citi Field for the final week before the All-Star break. A chance to take on the team with the best record in baseball and a chance for Dodger fans to investigate the Jackie Robinson Rotunda. Mike Pelfrey, coming off his best start of the season, takes on a former New Yorker and a former New York icon tonight. At Citi Field in New York, the New York Mets play the Los Angeles Dodgers. This Mets game on SNY is presented in HD by IOTV. Get the best in HD free with IOTV. And a pleasant good evening, everybody, and welcome to Citi Field. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling with you tonight as the Mets open a three-game series against the Los Angeles Dodgers, the team with the best record in the major leagues. The Dodgers were going great guns before Manny Ramirez's suspension in May. They had the best record in the major leagues. When Manny went out, they went 29-21, which was only the best record in the National League. Now Manny is back, having returned in San Diego over the weekend, and the Dodgers are poised to try and make a mockery of the National League West.
You know, I will tell you, though, I think it'll be a little different reaction here. A lot of the Angelinos that went down to San Diego to see Manny start his playing again, of course, loud cheers. I don't think that'll happen here. 50-game suspension. One of the problems he has, not only losing that $8 million, is that he only played in 5 of a possible 10 exhibition games he could have, so he's not in great shape. In fact, was rested on Sunday because he cannot play every day. But Dodgers are still such a strong team. They're 7th and 8th hitters tonight, 26 home runs, 94 RBIs.
That would be Matt Kemp and Andre Ethier. Meanwhile, the Mets, well, they've got a lot of problems. So you know all about the injuries. And the Mets were kind of hoping they'd be getting some people back soon after the All-Star break. Well, Omar Minaya updated everybody's injury status. The bottom line is, with Jose Reyes having just gotten a cortisone shot behind his knee and Carlos Beltran not running yet, is that the Mets are not getting anybody back anytime soon, with the exception of Oliver Perez, who returns tomorrow. They've got to play with what they've got.
And, you know, the bad news might be good news for the Mets, because now there's no artificial time limit. It was always the All-Star break. They're going to come back. I think you have to consider that they're not coming back, and it's Jerry Manuel's job to make sure that he relays it to his players that what they have in the clubhouse is what they have.
And that falls a lot on the frontline players who are left, including Mike Pelfrey, who comes off a great start his last outing in Milwaukee when he outdueled Giovanni Gallardo.
Yeah, he was outstanding in his last start. That's the second time this year he's given 7 2/3 innings. He did everything he had to do. Pitched with his secondary pitches, pounded the left-handers inside. And I think right now, when they need him most, the Mets need Pelfrey to come up big. He's the only starter who's going to have 2 starts before the All-Star break. He single-handedly can give this Mets team a big boost in this homestand.
And he's opposed tonight by one of the most talented young pitchers in baseball, 21-year-old left-hander Clayton Kershaw.
Well, Kershaw has been unbelievable in his last 4 starts. The Dodgers have won all of them as ERAs below 2. So it'll be a real rivalry between these 2 young pitchers.
So it's Pelfrey for the Mets, Kershaw for the Dodgers. First of 3 at Citi Field. Last week before the All-Star break, replacements are on the way out on the Wiffle Ball field. All the action coming up on SNY. TV. By Pella Windows, the Mets official window and door replacement company. Call 1-866-64-PELLA for special savings today. By Wise. Hey, Met fans, want to help break a world record? Get a ticket to the July 10th Mets game for the Wise Big City Crunch. By Pepsi, the Mets Pepsi Clutch Performer of the month of June was Fernando Nieve. And by Bigelow Tea, Joe Torre's green tea of choice. Commemorate the inaugural season at Citi Field with Mets amazing memorabilia, the official source for all your Mets game used and autographed collectibles. Call 718-559-3144 or log on to Mets.com/game-used to get your amazing memorabilia now. Here's your Jeep around the majors for tonight. The Phillies, after sweeping the Mets, scored 10 runs in the first inning. Got their last 6 off infielder Paul Janisch and beat the Reds 22-1. Nomar Garciaparra back at Fenway for the first time since the Red Sox traded him 5 years ago. Brett Anderson threw a complete game 2-hitter, and the A's beat the Red Sox 6-0. And Pablo Sandoval increasing his all-star candidacy with a grand slam supporting Matt Cain's 10th win as the Giants beat the Marlins 5-4.
That was the most runs the Phillies have scored since 1985 when they defeated the New York Mets 26-7. And Nomar had a minute standing ovation from the Fenway Park faithful.
And for the Reds, their largest margin of defeat ever, they started playing in 1869. Mike Pelfrey against Clayton Kershaw. First pitch from Citi Field coming right up. Call recently snapped out of a slump. Orlando Hudson's 0 for his last 22. Andre Ethier and Matt Kemp, that's as good a 7 and 8 combination as you'll find in any lineup in the majors. And oh yeah, Manny Ramirez, third game back from his suspension.
Well, this guy, Mike Pelfrey, is going to play a big part in what the Mets do in this homestand. He has 2 starts here. He's only given up 6 home runs so far in his 15-game starts, coming off one of his best starts of the season when he won a 1-0 decision over Yvonne Gallardo of the Brewers.
Rafael Furcal to lead things off. Furcal over the last 4 games 9 for 17, and that's boosted his average up to 254. And Pelfrey's first pitch of the night is taken for a strike. One and one to Furcal, who had his flirtation with returning to the Atlanta Braves during the offseason and made some enemies in Atlanta by turning them down and returning to Los Angeles. 2-1 to Furcal.
Atlanta had a very interesting offseason, didn't they? I mean, from John Smoltz to Glavine, but that sprinkled into the spring.
Chopped off the plate. In comes Castillo to field it and throws out Furcal for the first out of the night.
The Lexus Mets defense. Evans is becoming a fixture in left field. Church and Sheffield and right. Cora, Castillo, and Tatis gets the start at first base with the left-handed Kershaw going, and Santos, of course, doing the catching.
And speaking of the Mets defense, they were out here early today for some defensive drills, particularly pop-up drills. They had the pop-up machine stationed at home plate, and they were working on making sure that everybody communicated well and caught the ball with two hands. Orlando Hudson hitting second in the order takes a strike.
You know, kudos to Jerry and his staff for doing that, because a lot of teams would not do that. If the team was struggling in a certain area, they certainly wouldn't want to showcase that in front of the media before the game. But Jerry has been attention to detail. If they do not make a right play, they will come out here and work on it. They've done it all season long.
Hudson scuffling right now, 0 for his last 22, but he breaks that with an opposite field hit. Evans scoots over to play it, and Hudson, just like that, snaps off the 0 for and has the first hit of the night.
Well, this is the key against Mike Pelfrey. When he pitches you away, you're a left-handed hitter, you've got to go the other way, and way off that line, of course, easy hit for Hudson.
Well, a not particularly vocal reaction to Manny Ramirez. Some cheers, some boos, but not nearly what you might have expected in Manny's first game in New York, coming off the suspension. And he rips one foul.
I obviously call that a no reaction right there, which is I can't understand it.
Well,
I mean, I do understand it, but I thought that at least for his first at bat, it would be a bit raucous on the boo side here in New York.
Well, you said something the other day, Ronnie, that I thought was fascinating, and it, you know, it's probably true, and it's probably a shame that fans have become so inured to this, they just don't care anymore.
No.
They care about the hometown guys. They're going to cheer for them. They care about the enemy. They're going to boo them. But most of them seem not to care much at all about performance-enhancing drugs and drug suspensions and failed drug tests and the whole steroid era. Either they put it behind them or they never cared in the first place.
Well, Joe Torre had some interesting comments saying that, you know, the whole baseball world has been tarnished by what has happened. But, you know, feels at this point, what can you do? 50-game suspension for Ramirez, $8 million in lost salary. Well, time to move on.
Joe managed players with the Yankees who've been tainted, whether it's Pettit or A-Rod or Gary Sheffield. Giambi, all of those. 2-1 to Manny, and he takes high and away. 3-1.
This is the point here where Pelfrey, and the way he throws, he likes to throw that little sinker down and in. Problem you have with Ramirez is when you get behind in the count, he will look in. He's played long enough that he still has that old school in him. So you can see the defense playing a little bit to right center fielder Church.
And Pelfrey throws him a letter high fastball, 3-2. Well, Manny's now 37 years old. Just sat out 50 games, only had 5 rehab starts to try and get himself ready. And Joe Torre has said Manny doesn't quite have his legs under him yet. And the 3-2 is on the outside corner, strike 3 call. And Ramirez, who's done a lot of arguing since he's come back, stops to express his opinions to John Hirschbeck. 2 out.
Well, I thought when I first saw this ball that it was outside. Let's take a look from Pelfrey. Santos catches it, maybe too close to take us. Hirschbeck calls that strike 3. Manny, of course, who usually has an incredible eye at the plate, but remember, missing 50 games.
He was called out at first base on a play on Saturday and almost got himself ejected from the game. Went right after Hirschbeck there.
He's saying that ball was 6 to 8 inches outside.
Casey Blake hitting cleanup for the Dodgers. Blake hitting at 289. And Hudson just got back to first base. Mets got swept a 3-game series in Los Angeles early this year, and Blake had a huge hand in one of those 3 games. He had a 3-run homer off John Maine that turned the second game of that series around.
Maine was having a fine game up until that point. Just a little hanging slider to Blake, who has really come on. Batted in the 8th position for most of the year for these Dodgers. Pelfrey still keeping Hudson close. Hudson playing some games over there off of first base. Lets me know that he has a little inkling into Pelfrey's problems that started in San Francisco on that mound.
Blake fouls it off 0-2. Blake picked up from the Indians last year, right about the same time the Dodgers got Manny Ramirez, and while Manny got most of the credit for the Dodgers' late season surge, Blake had a lot to do with that as well.
Anyone who's played with Casey Blake knows he's a real pro. He also is one of those guys that's very serious about the game. No shenanigans, which is the opposite sometimes of Manny.
Well, 2 veteran players, Manny now 37, Blake now 35, an otherwise pretty youthful Dodger lineup. Pelfrey ahead 0-2, and it's flared into right field. A base hit for Blake. Hudson pulls in at second, and the Dodgers have 2 on with 2 out. So Blake getting a base hit on an 0-2 pitch.
Well, interesting that Pelfrey so far in this game, the right-handers, has been pitching mostly on the outside corner. That is a change from Pelf. Usually he spends most of that time down and in.
James Loney will bat. Well, Pelfrey, for much of the early part of this year, struggled mightily in the first inning. In his first 10 starts, he gave up 13 first-inning runs. Of late, the first-inning problems have gone away to the point where in his last outing in Milwaukee, he had a 7-pitch first inning.
Don Mattingly on the left with Manny Ramirez.
That's a lot of hitting talent.
He has a nice back of the baseball cards.
Well, here's Loney. He swings and misses at the sinker, 0-1. Loney riding a 6-game hitting streak, hitting 280 on the year, 51 RBI.
I believe one of the more underrated young players in the league. Can catch it, can hit it, drive in runs, hasn't even tapped into his talent.
And a good defensive first baseman as well. All-speed pitch from Pelfrey, and it's 0-2.
Nice change up there as Manny talks with Ramirez. Think about it, James Loney, when he was coming out of high school, they didn't know whether to draft him as a hitter or a pitcher. 95-mile-an-hour fastball, had all the tools.
Pelfrey again ahead 0-2. And Loney chasing a high fastball, fouls it off.
Well, some nice signs if Mike can get through. Those are the first inning runs we were talking about, Gary. Some nice signs if you can see Pelfrey get through this first inning. We've already seen a change of first strike to a left-hander. We've also seen him throw a high fastball, something he doesn't do very often, using all his pitches.
Russell Martin hitting 6th in the order on deck. One and 2 to Loney. Hudson is at second, Blake at first with 2 down. Another changeup that misses, 2-2.
You know, very interesting when you look at the Mets defense. Ryan Church, of course, in center field. You can see there they have to keep plays shallower than Beltran plays.
Having that little problem stepping off and back on. Another change up, and it's 3-2 to Loney. I think he's moving his hands very little now in his stretch.
Yeah, well, he's trying to take out all the moving parts. He almost gets like anchored in there and then just tries to proceed to the plate. He steps off a lot and almost like he can't go until everything is quite right. And then when he goes, literally, he's going to go quickly.
The runners get set to take off with 3 and 2 and 2 down. And Loney taps one past the mound. Cora behind the bag. And he throws out Loney to end the inning. So Pelfrey works around a couple of first-inning hits, and the Mets are going to work on Clayton Kershaw on the bottom of the first with no score. Hits leadoff against the left-hander. Fernando Tatis again gets a start at first base. Nick Evans in left field. Omar Santos behind the plate against the lefty, and Ryan Church stays in against left-handers.
Well, Clayton Kershaw, who earlier this season Joe Torre likened to a young, should I say it, Sandy Koufax, and he's had some amazing games, but up and down. Youngest player in the National League last season, had a 5-5 record. This year so far, 5-5. And the defense behind him for the Dodgers, Ramirez, of course, in left field. Kemp, who's gotten so much better in center. Ethier in right. Blake, Furcal, Hudson, and Loney, and Russell Martin, of course, doing the catching. Lando Hudson, you saw there, 3 Gold Gloves.
Luis Castillo leads off. Castillo hitting .276, .293 from the right side. Last year, Clayton Kershaw made his only start against the Mets at Shea Stadium on the 30th of May, and Luis Castillo hit a home run against him in his only at bat. In fact, last year Louis had 3 home runs. They all came in the same month, all against left-handers. And Kershaw was his 3rd and final victim.
Well, this is what you'll see a lot from Kershaw. A lot of 2-0, 2-1 counts. Just has not honed it in yet, although he's been more effective his last 4 starts.
Alex Cora on deck. Well, his last start for Kershaw was pretty much emblematic of his season so far. He allowed only 1 hit in 5 innings against Colorado, but he walked 5 and so was not able to go beyond 5 innings.
The problem you have with Kershaw is he's very tall, 6'7", also has a very herky-jerky motion, and add that with 94-mile-an-hour fastball and a great overhand curve.
And that fastball in for a call 3rd strike, and Castillo, the toughest man to strike out in the National League, is down looking for the first out.
Well, so far John Hirschbeck has had a large strike zone, called that ball outside. The Ramirez is striking here. The Castillo, I think Castillo is arguing that might have been high, not on the corner.
And you know, the Hirschbeck brothers have always been known as pitchers umpires. John Hirschbeck, the crew chief of this unit, with Wally Bell, Marty Foster, and Chad Fairchild. Here's Alex Cora hitting 2nd in the order, and he takes a fastball for a strike. Cora, a former Dodger.
And there's the first curveball from Kershaw, 1-1. News today that Jose Reyes came back to New York from his stint rehabbing in Florida and had to have another cortisone shot behind his knee. Jose was taking ground balls. He was doing a little hitting. But when he tried to run, he still had pain. And that's basically been the case every time he's tested that leg since he re-injured it in L.A. when the Mets were there back in May.
And that's obviously not a good sign. And also that there's no guarantee. Now, if you start to do the math, you fans at home, and you see that Reyes and Beltran are not doing baseball activities, well, you know they're going to need 3 or 4 games when they come back. They're also going to have to do some hitting and running drills. So if you do the math, after the All-Star break is now history.
Well, I mean, to me, what's alarming is you've got guys who are out with leg injuries. Reyes with first the calf and then the torn hamstring tendon, and Beltran with the bone bruise on his knee. As Cora lines one to short, and Furcal leaps to grab it for the second out. You've got guys coming back from leg injuries who aren't doing the least bit of running. If you're coming back with a leg injury and you're not even attempting to run, not even a straight line at this point, you're a long way from coming back.
Well, you can see with Gary Sheffield, who has a similar kind of injury, aggressive style playing is not in his repertoire. But for Beltran and Reyes, of course, it's one of the major parts of their game.
I mean, you've still got baby steps to go through before you can even think about getting into any kind of a rehab game. So, and I think Jerry Manuel made this point pretty well tonight. He said, right now my responsibility is to win with the players we have. Yeah. And of course it'll help if David Wright can get back on a hot streak. David has been so hot and cold this year, and he's in one of those cold spells right now. 0 for his last 13 and 5 for his last 41.
Well, this has been the problem, is that he has been swinging and missing on the fastball. That has been the pitch that has been beating David.
And the curveball misses 2-1.
It was interesting because Jerry was asked, was it fatigue? Of course, the Mets had a day off, a much needed one yesterday after 21 straight days in a row. And he said, you know what? I think it's more fundamentals than fatigue.
Well, I think also when you've got backup players and borderline major leaguers playing every day, you tend to find the flaws over a long period of time. That's why guys are backup players. 3-2 now to Ray.
And he's spending a lot of time batting, although albeit in his last game hit into that double play, spending a lot of time batting with no one on base. When no one's on base, pitchers are going to pitch you differently. And they have been coming right at David.
Now Kershaw's 3-2 hit foul.
And let me tell you, if you're in a meeting before the game and you're dealing with this young pitcher, you're saying to yourself, if you have an out, make sure you go to your fastball. Right now, David's having a little problem catching up. Although each swing progressively better on this Kershaw fastball. Good about the Dodgers is that they have Brad Ausmus, who's their backup catcher. He's great at running those pregame meetings, getting everyone involved.
Again, the 3-2, and David takes it low, ball 4, and the Mets have their first base runner of the night. And Gary Sheffield will bat with a man on. Well, for Kershaw, who leads the National League in walks, that's the 53rd he's allowed this year in 88 innings. And clearly that's a piece of his game that needs to improve, but not all that atypical for a youngster rush to the big league. Made his debut last year at the age of 20.
He's still 21 years old. I mean, think about it. Went to high school with Matthew Stafford, who was the #1 pick in football this year from Georgia.
Yeah, he blocked for Stafford his freshman year at high school. I mean, think about that. Kershaw didn't even have the best arm on that football team.
That's funny.
Ball 1 to Sheffield. Here's Ron's inside pitch on Kershaw, part of the business of baseball, brought to you by Xerox. Ready for real business.
Well, his problem so far is throws too many pitches, so going to the bullpen very early, averaging less than 6 innings a start. You got to stay away from his curveball. That is the knockout punch. And sometimes against these really talented young pitchers that have been rushed to the big leagues, sometimes there's some things you can do small ball. Bunting, making him field his position, trying to run. hitting and running, all those little things that can defeat and kind of rattle a young guy on the mound.
He's done a pretty good job of controlling the running game so far this year. 5 stolen bases and 9 tries against Kershaw, who grew up in the Dallas area. Right at first with 2 down. Boy, almost looked like he didn't stop in his set there. That could have been a balk. 2-1 to Sheffield. Fernando Tatis on deck.
I believe he has 2 balks already this season, and I know that comes from that little drop of the hands and sometimes doesn't come to a complete stop.
They're holding the hands high for that 1 second. That's what the Mets had Doc Gooden do at one point in his career. Hold those hands high to try and stop the running game. Never worked.
Should have left him alone. I think he was doing all right by himself.
Sheffield fouls it back. Gary leading the Mets with 10 home runs. Hitless in his last 6 at bats. Mets have hit just 50 home runs as a team. Their lowest total at the halfway point of the season since 1992. It's a lot of home runs ago in Major League Baseball. Right takes off. Sheffield takes the curveball for a 3rd strike. Kershaw breaks one off and gets Sheffield looking, his 2nd strikeout. Off to the 2nd we go. Pelfrey back to the mound with no score. In the early part of July. Didn't realize we had so much greenery here in Queens.
They've done a nice job with the landscaping around with the flowers when you get off the train. It's beautiful.
Russell Martin leads off the 2nd inning against Mike Pelfrey. Martin hitting just .248. It's been a down year for him offensively. Last year Martin hit .280 with 13 homers and 69 RBIs. You can see halfway through the year he is way off those numbers. It'll be Martin, then Andre Ethier, and Matt Kemp in the 2nd inning. Well, the Mets are already ahead of the game tonight. Over the weekend in Philadelphia, the Mets gave up runs in the 1st inning every game, never led in the entire series, and trailed from the 1st inning on. It's the first time in Mets history they've ever played a series of 3 or more games where they trailed from the 1st inning on in every game and never led.
Or tied. In anything, right? Wow.
They trailed from the 1st inning and never led in any of the games. Never had happened before, not even to the 62 Mets.
I read that the first one out of the block. I couldn't even intellectually deal with it. It's amazing that the first time since 62. Or any time, sorry. Yeah.
Martin lines one to left, and he's got a base hit. So the Dodgers have their third hit off Pelfrey, leadoff man on in the second. And, you know, if you're a starting pitcher right now, Ronnie, I mean, Pelfrey had a game his last time out, a memorable game, because he matched up against the other team's ace in Gallardo, and Gallardo pitched a gem of a game. Mets got 1 run, which is all they needed because Pelfrey was so good. But it's got to weigh very heavily on a starting pitcher right now to think that you've got to be practically perfect to win a game these days.
I will tell you, though, you got to scratch that from your brain. Because if you go in with that kind of thought that I've got to be perfect or I have no chance tonight, chances are you're not going to be perfect. So the best way always to deal with these kind of moments is kind of get insular and bring everything inside and try to be in the moment. Okay, I just gave up a hit to Martin. That's gone. I have to concentrate on holding him close because he'll occasionally steal a bag. How do I get Ethier out? Those are the best ways to have length in success in a game.
Pelfrey, a double play specialist, facing Ethier, who's tied for the league lead, grounding into 14 double plays. Pelfrey using that quick move. He almost got Hudson leaning the wrong way in the first inning.
Well, as the defense gets Ethier, of course, the shortstop Cora playing right behind the bag, right way off the bag. You see Church again, very shallow in center field. I like that.
Late swing foul, and it's 1-2. It looked like Ethier was trying to hit the ball to that open left side of the infield.
You know, you were talking about Martin struggling this year, Gary. I will say playing in New York is a very unique thing. It's a very difficult place to play because of so much media coverage. LA is different for different reasons. There's a lot of distractions away from the field. That's Hollywood. There's a lot of people that'll come your way with distractions.
And Ethier down swinging at a good slider by Pelfrey for the first out of the inning.
It's the best slider I've ever seen Pelfrey throw to a left-hander. Not only big break, but a late break.
That's something you just don't see very much from Mike.
He really snapped that off. I think a lot of times when I watch him throw secondary pitches, it's almost like he's trying to pinpoint or throw a dart out there to the corner. Sometimes when he lets it go, you see a pitch like that.
Now Matt Kemp, about as good a number 8 hitter as you're going to find in the National League lineup. He's hitting .305 with 10 home runs and 44 RBIs. And let's face it, if the Mets had Matt Kemp right now, he might be batting cleanup.
The Mets hitters in the lineup today combined 25 home runs. Ethier and Kemp, 26.
That's your 7 and 8 hitters.
There you go.
You know, the Dodgers are third in the National League in runs scored. They lead the league in hitting, lead the league in on-base percentage. You toss in with that some of the best defense in the league and the second best pitching numbers, and you can understand why they have the best record in baseball. The Dodgers come in at 52-30 with a 7-game lead over the Giants in the National League West. And you see some of their offensive numbers. Not hitting home runs. That's not really their game. But with Manny back, they'll hit more.
And in talking with some people that are with the team every single day and some guys on the Dodgers bench, they say that their team has flaws themselves, but that the National League is more flawed.
You see Frank McCourt, the Dodger owner, has made the trip. Pelfrey comes inside 3-2 to Kemp with the pitcher Kershaw on deck.
I don't know if Frank has made his home base now in Los Angeles, but I know originally he came from Boston.
There goes Martin, and Kemp fouls it off. So Martin on his way with 3-2 and 1 out.
Let's see his jump here, Martin. Big lead. Oh, and a huge jump. Kind of got stuck in his tracks there a little bit, but Martin has good speed for a catcher.
Another foul ball.
Very interesting to watch Pelfrey from the stretch, isn't it now? Before he'd have a big movement of bringing that glove up. As you see the pitch count, 39 so far through the second. He take his time bringing that ball to the glove, and now really like he's almost a thief or a pickpocket. Just takes that ball right to the glove very quickly.
Like he's pushing one Lego piece into another. Martin runs, fouled off, just popped out of the glove of Santos. And Kemp stays alive, and Martin will have to go back. Ryan Howard, Jason Worth, early home runs off Aaron Harang. And the Phillies up 2-0 on the Reds. We've got Jay Happ pitching tonight. Phillies won 4 straight now. They're 2 games up on the Marlins, 4.5 over the Mets, and 5 over the Braves.
They're kind of sprinting to the break, aren't they?
Well, it's certainly been the case for the last month that the Phillies can get hot. They can open some space. Big chopper for Wright to wait for. And his throw across, not in time to get Kemp. Wright did not throw that ball well at all. That was a floater over to first base. And Kemp was able to beat it out for an infield hit.
Well, this ball came off the plate, and you see David jump up to get it, but does not get a lot on that throw when he throws it from the side. Kind of loops over there, and Kemp, you have to be aware of his tremendous athletic ability. 6'3", 220 pounds, and can fly.
So first and second and 1 out. Kershaw up there to bunt. And bunts it beautifully, forcing Wright to handle it. And he gets the out at first. 5-3 on the sacrifice, moving the runners along. Can't bunt it much better than that. Here's Ronnie's inside pitch on Mike Pelfrey, part of the business of baseball, brought to you by Xerox, ready for real business.
Well, you always have to make him elevate his fastball. If you go after that pitch, knees are down, you're going to hit a lot of ground balls, and prove he can throw strikes with his secondary pitches. Can he throw his changeup? Can he throw his curveball and slider for strikes? And sometimes you have to make him slow down. If he gets on a roll like he did against the Brewers in his last start, he will pitch very quickly. Guys on base, though, as he's doing now, he'll kind of slow it down.
Rafael Furcal bats with 2 in scoring position and 2 out. Furcal bounced out to Castillo his first time up. Pelfrey's been throwing first pitch strikes 8 out of 9 so far. But he misses with that first pitch changeup, 0-1.
The thing about Furcal is that this year they say he has been not getting hits, of course, but he has not been hitting with authority either. Kind of a lot of looping hits.
There's a strike. Martin is at third, Kemp at second with 2 down. 1-1 to Furcal, who's hitting just .209 with runners in scoring position. And the fastball misses, 2-1.
Going through the first 2 pitches to Furcal with changeups. Wondering if he's doing that because he has a base open and Hudson's been struggling, but Hudson got a hit in his first at bat.
Another changeup, and it's 3-1 to Furcal. I don't know if I'd be pitching around Rafael Furcal in this spot.
Hudson, to me, is the more dangerous hitter. I would go after Furcal. Absolutely. I don't care how many offers he's had.
Now the 3-1, and that fastball misses. So Pelfrey pitching very carefully to Rafael Furcal, and that loads the bases for Hudson, who snapped an 0 for 22 skid with a base hit between right and the third base bag in the first inning. For 4 years, maybe the best fielding shortstop I've ever seen.
I know, I didn't get to see him. You tell me that. I really regret that I didn't get to see him play more.
He was phenomenal, but he was like a comet flashing through the sky. Here's Hudson, and he takes inside with the fastball, 1-0.
Maybe they went with the stats. Hudson without a hit with the bases loaded so far this season.
Dodgers as a team hitting just .244 with the bases loaded and .175 with 2 out and the bases loaded. There's a strike. Pelfrey keeping that ball in on Hudson, 1-1. Martin is at third, Kemp at second, and Furcal at first. Good speed on the bases for the Dodgers. Pelfrey's already given up 4 hits in the first 2 innings. And again on the inside corner to Hudson.
This is a dart inside. Nice pitch by Pelf right on that inside corner. Just a perfect pitch, split the corner.
Inside 3 in a row. Is he coming back again? He's right there, and Hudson fouls it off.
Well, he's established in now, so there's many things he can do. He's established in, though, with his fastball. He could throw that slider that he threw Ethier. That would be a good pitch coming out of that same region. I would stay away from changeup or fastball away from Hudson just because of what he did in the first inning.
Came in with that slider and missed. 2-2.
Pitch count up now. 52 pitches this inning. 20 in the game. 29 this inning.
And on pitch number 30, Hudson takes just inside. See John Hirschbeck shake his head at Pelfrey, saying it just missed. 3-2.
I thought this was a good pitch. Watch it come back. He's back just at the end at the Santos. Well, I bet you we see it over top. It'll just be inside about 3-4 inches. Yeah.
So now the merry-go-round will be in motion. 3-2 and 2 out. He fouls it back. Better hack at that fastball.
Well, the problem you have now is Ramirez is on deck, is that you have established in, but also Hudson has seen 6 pitches, maybe 7 pitches inside. So, of course, he's going to have a better swing. Defensively, of course, the outfield shaded to left, straight up in the infield.
Again, the 3-2, and he missed ball 4, and the Dodgers take the lead. After pitching around for a call, Pelfrey walks Hudson with the bases loaded, and the Dodgers lead 1-0.
Now Danny Morton coming out to speak to his big right-hander. Had that 2-2 pitch. It's a very amazing thing when you're on the mound and you work a count and you work a hitter the way you want to work them, and then you get to that 2-2 count and you make the pitch, or you thought you make the pitch and the umpire does not call it. It's almost like a air out of a balloon. You almost, boy, I didn't count on going past this 2-2 pitch, but he did, and with the walk.
And now very early in this game, a crucial moment for Mike Pelfrey with the Mets down 1-0, and the Mets struggling offensively these days. Now you've got Manny Ramirez coming to the plate with the bases loaded and a chance to put a big hurt on the Mets early in this game. Ramirez went down looking on a 3-2 pitch that he thought was outside his first time up.
Well, he took a lot of pitches in that first at bat. I would be very wary. He will be ready to swing first pitch.
And Manny does swing and misses the fastball. 0-1.
Pelfrey with that fastball away, called by Hirschbeck. Ramirez with the argument, said that pitch was 6 inches outside. Hirschbeck did not agree.
Manny Ramirez, 20 career grand slams, second all time to Lou Gehrig's 23. Pelfrey continuing to work him inside. 1-1.
Well, he did that the first at bat. He pounded him in to go away. Gonna have to make sure he makes those pitches away, because in RBI situations, anything away, Ramirez just loves to go the other way for just a base hit.
There's a good pitch on the outside edge, and it's 1-2.
Again, I'm judging Ramirez by a guy in mid-season, but I'm not judging him by a guy coming off 50-game suspension. Good pitch from Pelt.
One of the best right-hand hitters of all time. 534 career home runs. Tied with Jimmy Fox for 16th on the all-time list, and now just 2 behind Mickey Mantle. And what he's done for the Dodgers since he joined them. Here's the 1-2. Broken bat bloop, and it falls in for a base hit. Kemp and Furcal come in to score, and the Dodgers lead 3-0. Pelfrey did everything right. He broke Manny Ramirez's bat, but Manny drops one into center field to chase home 2 and give the Dodgers a 3-0 lead.
Well, that's the problem you have with Ramirez. This is a perfect pitch by Pelfrey. Inside, off the plate, completely shattered bat. But the Washington Heights native strong enough to just get this ball over the head of Cora, and 2 RBIs. See the base runners, of course. First to third goes Hudson. Dodgers in business.
1,750 runs batted in now in the career of Manny Ramirez. Here's Casey Blake. With first and third and 2 down, 3 runs already in. And Blake takes a strike. Blake single to right his first time up.
And 60 pitches total. That just is not going to make it if you want to go deep into the ball game.
Blake tries to hold on the slider, and he stopped it in time.
Sorry, Gary. This has got to be so frustrating. Puffy's got some of the best stuff he's had all season long. And he's in the second inning, and he's behind 3 runs already.
Well, I think the biggest mistake he made was the at-bat with Furcal. He had second and third and 2 out, and Furcal at the plate, and he pitched around him. Then he walked Hudson to force in a run, and that put him in harm's way. And Manny Ramirez, despite the fact that Puffy made an excellent pitch, drove home 2. Behind on Blake 3-1. We're going to get warm-up action now in the Mets bullpen. Elmer Descends is up early.
That's a lot of pitches per inning. You've got to be under 15 if you want to make it happen here in this pitch count era.
3-2 now to Blake.
And you at home might be saying, why is Descends up so quickly? Puffy's throwing all right, just got unlucky a couple times. Well, with this Mets offense right now, you can't afford to get too far behind.
Heck, they may already be too far behind. Ramirez will go from first, 3-2. Hit on the ground right at Castillo. That'll end the inning, but 8 Dodgers came to bat, and they scored 3. A bases loaded walk, and then a broken bat, 2-run single by Manny Ramirez. And Humphrey in an early hole. And the Dodgers have taken a 3-0 lead. It's because the concourses are so wide.
Yeah.
Mr. Met no longer has access problems.
Well, you know, it's pretty interesting. He'd always spend most of his time in the seats at Shea, and now here is just amongst the crowd the entire game.
Fernando Tatis will lead off the bottom of the second. Mets now down 3-0. And Kershaw misses up and away for ball 1.
Black eye, cotton candy, blue lips. Maybe a little blue about that second inning.
What was the cotton candy solace for the black eye?
Maybe he had to get the black eye to get the cotton candy.
Well,
wrestled it away from someone.
I don't know. The cotton candy looked pretty intact.
He'd rather switch than fight.
Looks like it's all working out okay for him now. Tatis hitless in his last 8 at-bats. Hitting a .253 on the year. Ryan Church on deck, and then Nick Evans in the second. And Fernando takes inside. Kershaw behind 3-1.
Well, that's the difficult part of hitting this young Kershaw, is that he is just wild enough that it's hard for you to sit on any one pitch.
And that's called a strike by Hirschbeck, similar to the pitch he called Ramirez out on.
Well, think about it. He doesn't even come close to one pitch. And the next one, of course, I thought it was a little outside, but very similar to the pitch to Ramirez. You're right. So John Hirschbeck, that's all you can ask of an umpire, that he has one strike zone, and that's the strike zone you're going to deal with all game long.
And again, that's John's reputation.
Yeah.
He's always been a pitcher's umpire. Here's a 3-2, and Tatis grounds one right to Furcal. And that's the first out of the inning. So 1 out in the home second. See the Mets at the movies in Manhattan, New Jersey, or Long Island Thursday night, July 16th. Join Mr. Met and fellow Met fans for SNY's live broadcast when the Mets face the Braves at 7:10 p.m. Get your tickets at Mets.com/movies today. So let's see, they have multiple locations for the movies, and Mr. Met appears in every one of them. Does he have like one of those hovercrafts?
He does. Yeah, he has it all. Helicopter, whatever he needs. He's like the James Bond of Citi Field.
Here's Church, and he takes a strike. Church got off to a tremendous start on the road trip, had game-winning hits, the only 2 games the Mets have won in their last 10, in Milwaukee and Pittsburgh. But then went 0 for 8 the last 2 games in Philadelphia.
You know, it's interesting that after Sheffield struck out the end of bottom of the first, I saw him walking out with Church to the outfield, and I'm sure the conversation sort of went like this. Remember all the scouting report on this kid? It's kind of all true. He's really good.
And now with the lead here in the second inning, he's just coming out and throwing fastballs.
He likes to strike you out, though. That's what they've said. So whenever he gets in these counts, usually you see that breaking ball from Kershaw. Let's see what Martin goes with.
90 strikeouts in 89 innings this year.
Loves the curveball.
And there it is, and he gets Church looking. His third called third strike, and 2 of the 3 have come just like that with the curve.
Well, I said loves the curveball. Why wouldn't you? Boy, what a nice break late. Almost impossible right now for the left-hander to hit that pitch, especially the first time seeing Kershaw.
Well, you mentioned earlier that after his 13 strikeout game against the Giants early this season, Joe Torre dropped the Sandy bomb on him.
That is a bomb.
I mean, you hate to do that to any young pitcher, but looking at his stuff, you can understand why Joe was moved to say that. Nick Evans takes inside 1-1.
He doesn't give up any hits. The league's only hitting 207 coming into this game. It's really his own undoing, as you see some of the info, bio on Mr. Kershaw.
Loop to shallow center. Furcal can't get there, and the Mets have their first hit of the night. A 2-out bloop for Nick Evans.
You know, almost the same kind of hit that Manny Ramirez had, but this one, of course, does not plant any runs. Nice hustle by Furcal.
So Evans aboard with 2 down, and now Omir Santos. You know, talking about Kershaw, you look at his numbers, and obviously his style is very different. But you know who his numbers remind me of? Sid Fernandez.
Yeah, same kind of pitcher.
Used to be nobody would get hits against Sid, and he'd walk the ballpark.
I know Mel Stottlemyre, as we see Rick Honeycutt on the left, the pitching coach. Joe Torre, of course, needs no introduction. Mel Stottlemyre used to always say that Sid was going to throw the first no-hitter. He just didn't envision how he's going to get him through 9 innings, because Sid, for 5 or 6 innings, he's just unhittable almost every single night.
And you look at Kershaw's numbers first time through the batting order, very similar. You just don't hit him the first time around. The league is hitting 144 against Kershaw first time through the order. The Mets are 1 for 6 so far. Not about in keeping with that. Santos takes outside with the curveball 1-1.
The only difference between Sid and Kershaw at this point is that, see those numbers that Gary just said, Kershaw is his own undoing. Lots of pitches, so he doesn't really get into the 6th or 7th, and walks a lot of guys. Sid didn't walk guys. We used to call him 3-2 Sid. He would be 3-2 on everybody, and they would foul off 3 or 4 pitches.
Well, Sid, of course, started out in the Dodgers organization. Mets got him in a trade for Bob Baylor.
Bob Baylor and Carlos Diaz. There you go.
The curveball struck him out. So Kershaw fans Santos for his 4th strikeout of the night.
Wake up in the morning at 6 a.m.
We head for the 3rd at Citi Field. On a beautiful evening, it's the Dodgers leading it 3-0. Leagues in the same season. Had to be traded somewhere.
Yes.
In the middle of the season. I think one of those guys is in the ballpark.
Yep.
James Loney will lead off in the 3rd inning. Loney grounded out to short his first time up. It took Mike Pelfrey 42 pitches to negotiate the 2nd inning. Believe it or not the most pitches he's thrown in an inning this year. Most pitches Mike threw in an inning this year. It was his first inning of the season in Cincinnati. Remember, he gave up a 3-run homer to Joey Votto before he retired a batter. And he threw 44 pitches in that inning. I guess the good news off that one is the Mets won that game.
That's right. Well, it's been tough go. Although he's pitched well here at Citi Field, he has not won in his last 5 starts at Citi despite a low ERA, just over 3.
I love the fact that he is continually working inside tonight.
He's got good stuff, and it belies the score. It really does. But you know, you make maybe a mistake in judgment, then no mistake as Ramirez does what he's done. What you say, 1,750 times before.
2-2 to Loney on the inside corner, strike 3 call. 3rd strikeout for Pelfrey as Loney is down for the first out in the 3rd. Let's check in with Kevin Burkhardt. Kevin.
Guys, special guest tonight is Gene Stevenson. They had longtime head coach, just completed his 32nd year at Wichita State. Getting to watch Mike Pelfrey pitch for the first time in person. This got to be pretty special for you, Gene.
Yeah, it's really special. But, you know, I'd like to see him not throw so many pitches in an inning. Had a little tough luck last inning and you know, sawed off Manny pretty good, but he got the base hit. So it's kind of tough.
Well, Pelfrey obviously went to Wichita State, a kid that grew up in Wichita, so pretty easy for you to keep him there. What was he like, if you could tell us, as Martin finds a hole? It's going to be a base hit for him. Give me your impressions of Pelfrey when you got him, when he committed to Wichita State.
Well, we knew he was going to be a great pitcher, and I think that the one thing that stuck out about him at that time is he threw a lot harder than he's throwing now. I mean, when he left us, he was throwing 97, 98 pretty regular all the time, and he had a great breaking ball and great changeup. I don't know whether he's just had some tough times or made some changes or something, but you know, I really thought he was going to be a great pitcher for a long time, and he still may be. You know, it's just, he's still relatively young.
So you thought maybe he'd be more of a power strikeout type pitcher. So that's what it sounds like.
Definitely, he had a very good changeup, very good breaking ball, and the outstanding fastball. The only guy that probably had better movement with his fastball as a right-hander in our program was Darren Dreifert, and that was a pretty good one before he got hurt.
Yeah, that's a pretty good name to throw out there, that's for sure. Well, you know, Pelfrey's a guy drafted out of high school a lot lower than he expected from with the Devil Rays, so he decided to go to school. As Martin steals the bag, he's down at second base now. How did you, you know, what did you think helped him by coming to college after bypassing that?
Well, he matured a lot as a person. He was very young, and he had not left Wichita, Kansas hardly at all, and he really had a lot of maturing to do. He's a fine young man, a great citizen, and still a great prospect. There's no doubt about that. He just needs some more consistency. And I know he had a great outing the last time out, and probably the last 2 times out have been really good. And hopefully he'll right himself before the night's over tonight. I kind of got mixed feelings when Casey Blake comes to bat because, you know, Casey Blake played 4 years for us in the mid-90s.
Yeah, Casey Blake, another Wichita State guy. Plenty others as well. Joe Carter, you could go on and on. Braden Looper, we just saw, it's 3-1 in Ethier. You know, when you look at Pelfrey, you're getting a chance to see him for the first time. You guys were talking in the clubhouse today for probably 2 hours. Is there any way you could share with us a little bit of that conversation?
Well, I think he's a little concerned because he gets a little nervous from the stretch position, and I don't know why. You know, he never had that problem before, but you know, this game and the pressures of it can do a lot of things to guys, and sometimes he gets in a position where, especially from the stretch position, where he gets nervous and wants to get the pitch made too quickly and wants to get on with it. And I think a lot of times, sometimes he's making the pitch before he gets the signal even. So it's been kind of tough for him. I think he needs to relax a lot more and be focused on what he needs to do. I know that he feels like he's got to be very, very good with the situation with the Mets right now because they all have so many injuries and they have so many guys that are really good players that are out. But he knows he has to be almost perfect if he thinks he's going to be able to win. And I think that makes it very difficult, puts more pressure on the guy in the first place.
And he's in trouble tonight. He just walks Ethier. He's thrown a lot of pitches now, and certainly you got Kemp up. This is a tough batter, not a number 8 hitter normally. But here you are seeing Pelfrey for the first time. You saw Blake. Tell me about your contact you have with your ex-players, and how much contact do you have? How often do you talk to Mike on the phone, things like that?
Well, I call them a lot, but, you know, they're awful busy, and sometimes they're not able to call right back. If I were better at text messaging or email or whatever all that stuff, I'm still a dinosaur. So I just use the word of mouth, and, you know, they'll call me back as it gets closer to me making the contact with them. So, but we have so many. We've been blessed with so many good players over the years and so many outstanding teams that, you know, it's hard to imagine little old Wichita State in the middle of the country out there in the cold weather plains having those kinds of teams. So it's been a great run for us, and we're not done yet. We had a tough year this year because we had 12 guys that signed off our team from the year before, 8 of them underclassmen.
Kemp drills one, tough play. Church on the run, and he makes it. Good catch from Ryan Church, helps out Pelfrey there. One more, Gene, before we let you go. You talk about Wichita State. You talk about all these pro ball players. How many pro ball players have you had?
Well, we've had about 135 signed over the last 28, 29 years, I believe. That's the first time they were eligible. And of those, we've had 35 make the major leagues. So that's a pretty good ratio.
But how did you started out there and built that program up? Why Wichita State? How did you turn Wichita State into that type of program and get guys like Pelfrey and Blake to go?
I've always believed one thing: it's about people. And if you can attract people to come for whatever reason, because of the personality or because of the interaction that you can have with one another, I think that's the most important thing. Because when we got Joe Carter and Phil Stevenson, Don Heinkel, Charlie O'Brien, those kind of guys to come in the first place, we had no field, we had no equipment, we had no money, we had nothing. And I mean absolutely nothing. We started with no field, no practice field of any kind. So within 4 years, we're not only playing the College World Series championship game, we're setting an NCAA record of 73 wins in one season. So that was a whale of a time to start. And still back home, we had no seats, we had no bathrooms, and we had no dugouts. So it was a tough road, but it's a great place now. We've got over 8,000 seats upcoming, and great facility.
And there your boy gets a big strikeout again. Gene Stevenson, a coaching legend. Thanks for the insight, Gene. It was great.
Oh, thank you, Kevin, very much.
Mike Pelfrey gets out of the inning, gets out of trouble. Still, though, it's the Mets that got a lot of work to do down.
Coming in, that he has one of the best curveballs in the league, and true to form, just outstanding. Kind of rocks back on that back leg and then fires with that back side and just gets on top of that curve. And how do you have a great curve? You got to have great rotation. The faster you can make it spin, the harder it's going to break. And that's what Kershaw has.
Mike Pelfrey will lead off at the bottom of the third, and it was fascinating listening to Gene Stevenson, his college coach, talk about Mike and talk about his program during the last half inning.
I wanted to put a uniform on and go and play. I mean, he's just so inspirational.
You can understand listening to him, and he's so laid back in a Midwestern kind of a way, but you can just tell the kind of spark that's there and how you build a program out of nothing into one of the elite programs in college baseball with that kind of a personality.
Well, you mentioned Joe Carter, of course, that all you fans know about from the World Series and that walk-off home run that every kid would love to have. But Phil Stevenson, he mentioned that name.
It's his brother.
It's his brother, of course.
Played for the Cubs.
You have Google at home, all you young kids. Google his numbers at Wichita State. Off the planet.
Yeah, Phil didn't have quite the major league career that he might have liked, but he was a great college player playing for his brother. As Kershaw strikes out Pelfrey, and that's 5 strikeouts, first time around the batting order for Kershaw. By the way, Gene Stevenson, 32 years, 1,653 wins, 550 losses. That's a 750 winning percentage. Take that, wouldn't you?
Let's see.
Here's Luis Castillo, who took a call third strike his first time up. And Louis takes a fastball first strike.
Well, this kid's confidence when he got those 3 runs has changed, hasn't he? Just pumping in that first pitch fastball.
There's the curveball that sits high, 1-1.
I think the key for him is just working quickly will be a key. He'll be able to keep his stuff a little better. Tends to slow it down when he starts to walk people, which makes sense.
Full house at Citi Field. Final week before the All-Star break. 3 games with the Dodgers, 3 games with the Reds to finish out this first half of the season. technically the Mets have already finished the first half, but the traditional halfway point of the season, the All-Star break. Mets will be sending 4 to St. Louis for the All-Star game.
Toward the hole, past Blake for call on the backhand, but no chance to get Castillo.
And Louis has an infield hit. So the Mets have their second hit off Kershaw.
But well placed by Louis, just out of the reach of Blake, and could have really held this baseball, could have for a call. No chance to get Castillo going down the first base line. Let's see what kind of arm, though, Furcal has and defensive abilities.
21st infield hit this season for Castillo. That ties him for the National League lead with Emilio Bonifacio of Florida and Michael Bourne of Houston.
New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Acela, who congratulates Stacy Alabardo of Manhattan. Stacy won the Acela Express Ultimate Road Trip Sweepstakes and spent the 4th of July in Philadelphia. As Cora lines one to left center. Castillo around second, trying for third. Kemp's throw to third base, and he's out! Matt Kemp guns down Castillo, trying to go first to third. 2 out.
Well, what a play by Kemp. Usually in this position with a 3-run lead, this ball goes into second base to keep the force in order, but instead Kemp with that guns down Castillo with third base, and it wasn't even as close. I thought Castillo was going to get in there easily, but the strength of Kemp's arm gets Castillo at third base.
Jerry Manuel out to argue the call, but it looked like a good call by the third base umpire, Chad Fairchild.
You know, I've got the benefit of 3, 4, 5 replays. Jerry just sees it with his eye, and Kershaw, of course, happy with that play. But like I said, if he misses out and does not get Castillo there, you have second and third, and
it's a bad play.
And 1 out. It's a bad play, but
it's a good play if you get him.
There you go. It's like stealing a base.
It's the 9th assist of the year for Matt Kemp, and there's your Coors Light freeze cam. And it looked as though Blake got that tag down just in time. Cora took second on the throw home. David Wright, the batter, and he takes a curveball for a strike. David walked his first time up. Murphy's Law these days for the Mets. The opposition makes a questionable decision, and it works out perfectly. Kemp had to make a perfect play, and he made it.
It's just, you know, there's certain things that you'll see outfielders do just because you're not supposed to do that. But, you know, Kemp is still learning the position. We saw him come up as a right fielder. He barely, you know, he was like Daniel Murphy early in his career. Had real difficulty with the balls in the outfield.
But you know what, Ronnie? Athletic ability can overcome a lot of flaws defensively.
It can. You know, he has great speed. He has a great arm. 9 outfield assists now.
Kershaw had 1 and 2 on Wright.
See the ball off Cora. Oh, that little delay. Just see that? Because it was a line drive from Cora that barely went over the head of Furcal. He had to hesitate. That hesitation, of course, cost him.
Wright looks one to right field, easing over his Ethier to put it away and end the inning. So the Mets get a couple of hits off Kershaw in the third, but Matt Kemp with the fine play helps keep the Mets off the board. Still 3-0 Dodgers. the latest from the Mets, Yankees, and all things New York sports on Loudmouths, presented by Geico, weekdays at 6 only on SNY. Did he borrow that hat from Bear Bryant?
Yeah, that is the Bear Bryant hat, isn't it?
Hound's tooth hat.
There you go. Bear Bryant meets Steve Earle, maybe.
Rafael Furcal strokes one foul. Third time around the batting order for the Dodgers as we start the fourth inning. It cost Mike Pelfrey 84 pitches to get through the first 3 innings tonight. And probably the key at bat of the night for Mike, oddly enough, was Furcal's in the second inning. The Dodgers had second and third and 2 out. Pelfrey pitched around Furcal, walked him, and then walked Hudson to force in a run and gave up a 2-run broken bat hit to Manny Ramirez. Castillo bobbles and then throws wide, and safe at first is Furcal. So Castillo, after getting thrown out at third base in the last inning, commits an error to give the Dodgers a leadoff base run.
Well, what will happen for most infielders is when they bobble a play like this, they will rush. And I think that's what happens here for Castillo. Gets a tough hop, panics a little bit, tries to fire that ball, not stepping to the base, and of course that throw errant.
6th error of the year for Castillo. And now Orlando Hudson, the Gold Glove second baseman, who expressed a fervent desire to play for the Mets. And if the Mets had been able to unload Castillo's contract in the offseason, they certainly might have had an interest in Hudson. But with Castillo here, there was no room for Orlando. Runner goes, line to left, Evans back, and he can't get it. Furcal heads for third. He's going to be waved home by Larry Boa. The relay throw to the plate by Cora. The slide, safe. 4-0 LA. RBI double for Orlando Hudson, his second RBI of the night. And the Dodgers now lead 4-0.
Again, Hudson going the other way. This ball just carried over the head of Nick Evans in left field. Nick didn't get a bad jump on it. The ball was just hit so sharply. Gets it in. Good throw to the cutoff man Cora. One hopper and the throw in. Watch the slide by Furcal. Goes around and then throws the left hand on the plate late. And Ramirez, the on-deck hitter, telling him to slide on the outside. And just, boy, like he was playing Twister, just able to get his body underneath that tag of Omir Santos.
And, you know, say what you want about Manny Ramirez. He was in exactly the right spot to help his teammate. And we have seen many plays at the plate this year where the on-deck hitter was nowhere to be found in those situations.
And he's probably out in that situation if Ramirez is not at the plate.
And he singled in 2 runs his last time up. 7 hits now off Pelfrey. And there's a fastball for a strike, 0-2.
Well, I see Manny saying down, down on this outside. That's where you want to stand, almost like you want him to slide right into you and then reach back with that left hand, which is a standard slide for most everyday hitters. Get down, he's telling them. Perfect job by Ramirez.
So Santos trying to get that left foot back into a position to block him, but just couldn't do it. Homer descends, who was up in the second inning. It's back up here in the fourth. As Pelfrey already up to 93 pitches. 12 seasons of 100 or more RBIs for Manny Ramirez. If not for the failed drug test, would have been a shoe-in for the Hall of Fame.
Look at that list.
Hall of Famers all. Wow. Except that Bonds and Ramirez right in the middle of that. They never find Cooperstown. Now, hit through the hole, a base hit for Ramirez. Hudson turns third. He heads on in. The throw by Sheffield cut off. And Manny has his third RBI of the night. And the Dodgers are pulling away. They lead 5-0. And that's going to be the evening's work for Mike Pelfrey.
I like to see this, right? Sometimes this team right now being challenged needs maybe a hug more than a kick in the backside. Jerry Manuel giving a warm greeting here to Pelfrey.
Despite the early exit, this was not the worst of outings for Mike Pelfrey. The results, though, are not going to be pretty. This call to the bullpen brought to you by Lincoln Mercury. Pelfrey will take his exit after 3 innings plus with Descends on in relief. Now Mike Pelfrey suffering through his shortest outing of the year. Certainly an odd start for Pelfrey tonight. Leaves trailing 5-0. Elmer descends in to face Casey Blake, who's 1 for 2 on the night.
Elmer, of course, had a couple different stints with the Los Angeles Dodgers. See his work so far. I think I've been pretty impressed with Descends as he's come up and eaten up a lot of these innings and trying to get some outs to save that bullpen for the New York Mets.
Pitched a scoreless inning Friday night in Philadelphia in his last outing. And Blake fouls away 1-2.
It'll leave you shaking your head. You know, this is one of those games that if Mike looks back, he'll say to himself, boy, I had my stuff tonight. But that's how difficult it can be in these major leagues. Sometimes your stuff is not enough. And it wasn't tonight.
Well, I mean, he had a start in Pittsburgh right about a month ago where he just got beat up.
Yeah.
I mean, he gave up 9 runs in 3 2/3, and he was right in the middle of the plate, and they were just whacking him all around the ballpark, and he walked 4. This was different. He was working corners, and it just didn't work. Double play ball to third. Wright hesitates, gets the out at second, but no out at first. Let that ball eat up David a little bit, but he had trouble handling it.
Yeah, that's the right call, Gary. That ball came up on him. Watch this hop. Skids off the grass and takes a little tough hop up into David. And by the time he can get the grip, gets the sure out at second base. The turn by Castillo, of course, too late. Just up enough that he wasn't able to get that cleanly.
And you saw Manny Ramirez with that hard slide, forcing Castillo to hesitate a moment. Maybe not get as much on the throw. So 1 out and 1 on. Now James Loney is grounded out and taking a call third strike. 0 for 2 tonight. 2-0 now to Loney. Taking a long look down at Larry Bowa to see if anything's on. Russell Martin waiting to hit next. Yeah, the slider for a strike, 2-1.
Elmer descends. This is his 367th game in the major leagues. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, stops in Arizona, LA with the Dodgers, Kansas City, Milwaukee, Colorado, Atlanta, here with the New York Mets.
And he didn't even mention his career in the Mexican League.
There you go.
He's been everywhere, man. Runner goes, hit and run play, and Loney fouls it off.
Interesting that these Dodgers are pushing the envelope, taking no prisoners, are they?
You know who they're playing like? They're playing like their brethren to the south.
Yes.
This is the way the Angels have played for years. They're not a big home run hitting team. They take the extra base, they play hit and run, they do what they need to do to tack on.
They make contact too. Not a lot of strikeout bats in that lineup. Go first to third, as good as anyone in the National League.
3-2 now to Loney. You think of Joe Torre as an American League manager, but of course he managed for years in the National League with the Mets and Braves and the Cardinals. And they have really played a National League style game. Runner goes, 3-2, line to left. Evans in front of it. Retreating quickly is Blake, and he gets back safely. So that's the second out of the inning.
I will say, though, makes it a little easier as you see those wonderful records. 12 division titles, 4 World Series, of course, with those Yankees. 2-time manager of the year. But it's awfully nice, and the Mets do not have this. Jerry Manuel does not have this. Be able to have your lineup in there now that Ramirez is back from the 50-game suspension for a call. Hudson, Ramirez, Blake, Loney, Martin, and Ethier and Kemp in the 7th and 8th position. That is an awfully good lineup.
Well, it's a luxury that the Mets had the last several years. They were able to keep their core healthy and intact, virtually wire to wire, year after year. You don't get that luxury every season, but you don't expect to lose 3/4 of your key guys. Usually handle losing one, as the Dodgers did for the period of time that Ramirez was out. Martin fouls it away 1-1. When Omar Minaya met with the media today, he was asked whether he believes that the team has enough to stay in contention until they get their core players back. Because now it's looking as though those people aren't going to be back for a longer period of time. And he said, well, we hope so. And he was asked, why do you have reason for hope? And it was hard for him to articulate an answer to that question. Right now, it's just a matter of hope. It's a matter of, can this unit, this undermanned unit, find a way to play flawlessly enough to win?
Well, there's no alternative. I think that's the problem. There's no alternative, so you have to find a way. The first thing it starts with, though, the problem with the Mets is starting pitching. The starting pitching has to be pretty flawless. And even then, we saw on Sunday, of course, with Mr. Santana, it could be pretty flawless. A couple of mistakes, and that was enough. So,
but the other piece of that is defense. And this team just has not played well enough defensively to overcome their offensive deficiencies.
Extra outs in the major leagues lead to losses. Easy as that.
Bouncing ball to third. And right goes the short way to get the force play on Blake to end the inning. But the Dodgers tack on 2 as Castillo's error opens the door. Hudson and Ramirez crash through it. Hudson with the RBI double. Ramirez with his 3rd RBI of the night. As we go to the bottom of the fourth inning, let's answer our Aflac trivia question. The only two players in Major League history to record at least 50 RBIs in both leagues. Well, it turns out they're both here tonight.
Yes, they are.
Because Carlos Beltran is in the building, although not ready to play.
Kansas City and Houston, of course, for Carlos in 2004. I believe he had 53 for Kansas City and 51 for Houston. The other way around, 51 for Kansas City, 53 for Houston. And of course, Ramirez 68 for Boston and 53 last year for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
And 53 in a hurry.
Yeah. Like Pujols hurry.
Sheffield leads off in the home fourth inning. Gary went down looking his first time up. And Clayton Kershaw, working with a 5-0 lead, throws ball one as Tim Redding gets up in the Mets bullpen. Redding, most recently seen in the starting role, bumped to the bullpen with the impending return of Oliver Perez tomorrow night. And with all the negative and or inconclusive news regarding injured Mets, there is one injured Met coming back, and that's Ollie, who you hope has been able to turn the page on what was a very flawed start to his season.
Yeah, and Jerry said that what he's looking for tomorrow when he watches Oliver pitch is how lively his pitches are. Not necessarily on the radar gun, but how much life they have to him, how he's surprisingly hit it for that fastball.
Last time we saw Ollie in a big league game was on a Saturday afternoon in Philadelphia in early May, and he had lost it at that point. It was good to see, though, when we watched him in his bullpen session here a couple of weeks ago, that he was getting back to that front to back to front delivery that Dan Worthen taught him last year.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do with Oliver is that they've, made sure that when he went down to AAA or went down to work out in Florida, then to Buffalo, that they had him sort of on that same game plan they had him when he was probably pitching his most effective under Dan last season. Danny Tripp's trying to resurrect that kind of nod to the plate, making sure he envisions taking all of that energy back straight and back through the catcher.
And the curveball gets Sheffield looking for the second time. That is 6 strikeouts now for Kershaw.
Well, the first one was inside. This one's back door. Never really comes over the plate until the last second. And just the perfect pitch that no one can hit. Rick Honeycutt, of course, former left-handed starter and reliever, saying, that's how my curveball used to break when I was 21.
A kid like this makes a pitching coach look pretty good.
Really, it does.
Here's Tatis, and that one skips away. Let me ask you this about Ollie coming back tomorrow. Does the fact that he has already in his career bounced back from a dreadful stretch? I mean, he was 3-13 the year the Mets got him in 06, and had the good postseason and won 15 games the following year. The fact that he's already come back from that low a point, is that a good thing or a bad thing when he tries to come back from another rock bottom this year?
Well, I think it's a good thing. I think he knows that he has been to the bottom and can come back and be on top of the planet again as he was when he won those 15 games. That being said, I think that when I watch Oliver pitch, and he's one of my favorite to watch pitch, is that he is one of those guys that is very fragile between being on top of his game and being underneath his game. And I think those are the things that he battles constantly. And I think coming out of spring training, going to WBC, coming back, there was some criticism, of course, about his workouts and how much he threw. And, I think that little criticism is the kind of stuff that will sting Oliver deep.
Tatis pops one up into shallow right, and Ether coming on to make the catch. 2 out.
Because when he starts spinning in the right direction, he's a whirlwind. And it's just the same when he's going the other way.
I guess the question is, at this point in Ollie's career, he's 7 years in now. Now, I don't mean to make an equation here at all.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
You look at Koufax's career, and it took him 6 or 7 years to figure it out, and then he became the most dominant pitcher over a 5-year span in the history of the game. Is it reasonable, though, to expect that Oliver Perez will ever be able to reach a level of consistency? And I say that only because he's pitched 7 years in the big leagues, or is it reasonable for him to expect for him to always be mercurial, always be up and down in this fashion?
Well, I'm gonna hope that it is the first part. That being said, sometimes we fall in love with someone's age, and there's baseball age and there's real age. And I think you alluded to that he is still a very young pitcher, but he has lots and lots of big league experience. And his big league experience has showed you that he is mercurial. He is a 500 pitcher over the course of his career, with stuff that most people would say should be stronger than that.
Judge fouls it away, and it's 1-2.
But I do think that he is a fraction, and I don't mean a mile, a fraction away from getting on one of those rolls where you go, boy, where was he in April and May? Because that's the kind of stuff he has.
Curveball bounced to first. One of the rare curves the Mets have made contact at tonight, but Church bounces out weakly to Loney, and Kershaw sets the Mets down 1-2-3 in the fourth. We head for the fifth at Citi Field, 5-0 LA. Mets.com or call 718-507-TIXX for your printed home tickets now. Lower third of the batting order for the Dodgers in the top of the fifth. Andre Ethier, Matt Kemp, and the pitcher Kershaw. Ethier has struck out and walked tonight. Mike Pelfrey lasted just 3 innings plus tonight, allowed 5 runs, 4 of them earned on 8 hits, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, before giving way to Elmer Descends. Change up in for a strike. 1-0 to Ethier. It's almost like an amusement park, isn't it?
It is.
Hey, how you doing?
We're waiting in line for the roller coaster.
I came to a game not so distant ago.
Ripped into right field, a base hit for Ethier. We'll hear more about Ronnie's day at the park in a moment. First, let's check in with Kevin.
Guys, I think the tilt-a-whirl just broke down, as a matter of fact. Got to get on that. You know, look, we're talking about the Mets defense. The pop flies have been okay today, but the ground balls have eaten up a couple Mets. We've seen that in the last inning. I had a pretty honest conversation with Razor Shines about that, and he said, you know what? I go home at night thinking, what have we missed? What else can we do? And obviously they were thinking today, because they had the guys out here today calling and catching pop flies. Can't say I've seen that too often. But Razor says the thing that's frustrating is for us as a coaching staff. You see the work being put in. You see the guys doing the work well. And you see the dedication to work. Yet when the situations arise in the game, you just don't see it. So there are times I say to myself, did I actually just see that? It's become that point. He said, you know what, guys I know are trying. I still feel like their spirit's up. I think my question to you guys is, how long does that last? I mean, how many times can you practice routine things and then not go through with it? You know, obviously Razor shines to the coaching staff just trying to figure out any way to make it work. It's not happening right now for the Mets, guys.
Well, what does that tell you? If you've got a team that's doing the work, doing the diligence, and then not performing in games. Ground ball to the hole and a base hit for Kemp. So those 7 and 8 hitters, Ethier and Kemp, both aboard to start the 5th inning.
Well, Kershaw now will be up here to bunt with no outs, runners in first and second. You asked the question, Gary. I think it's really pretty. It shows a lot of courage for Razor Shines to say that the coaching staff, they're looking every night what they have missed. Come on, this is the major leagues. So at some point, as we look at the defense playing the opposite way, but should be shallow on this bunt attempt by Kershaw. To some point, you know, if you can't catch a pop-up, then you don't belong here. I think that's sort of how it goes.
Kershaw gets the bunt down. Descends will have to go to first. 1-4 on the sacrifice.
So, you know, the Razor Shines and the coaching staff, they work as hard as any staff I've ever seen. As you see, the catcher, of course, Santos, does what he has to do. Point to the pitcher, yell and scream, first base, because right is right behind you. No play at third base.
Well, here's the puzzling part about all of this, the defensive woes that the Mets have had, Ronnie. You look around this field and you can identify a lot of places where you've got guys playing out of position, learning new positions, backups playing too much, but 2 guys on the field have won Gold Gloves. Castillo and Wright, and they've been as guilty as anybody of the Mets' defensive problems. That's the part that's puzzling to me.
It's been a team epidemic, absolutely.
The infield comes in for Furcal, and he takes ball 1. I mean, if a Daniel Murphy can't make a play at first base, you say, well, you know, he's a work in progress. If an Alex Cora has a problem, you say, well, you know, he's played too much. But you can't say that about everybody.
Well, it used to be that you would say defense and speed never go into slumps. That has not been the case.
Not this season. If things even out, it means the Mets are owed a lot of great defense in the second half.
A lot of great defense and a lot of great play. You know, if you look at the math of what faces the Mets as they get on the second part of this second half, or beginning the second half of play, you know, you were looking at a team that has to, at some point, good slide of good sense, go, you know, 53 and 30, something like that in the second half to get to 92. You know, that's a number you're looking at, and it easily can be done. They did it in May. They had more of the players then, of course, but that's the kind of months they're going to have in July, rest of July, August, and September.
Sands looking for a strikeout. This is inside. 2-2 to Furcal. Orlando Hudson waiting on deck. Now a full count to Furcal, with Orlando Hudson, who came into the night slumping and is slumping no longer, waiting on deck. And he walks again. So Furcal walked in front of Hudson in the second inning, helping to lead to Pelfrey's downfall, walks in front of Hudson again. And that'll bring Dan Warrington out of the dugout. In Philadelphia, Brandon Phillips has hit 2 home runs tonight for the Reds, and they've tied up the Phillies 3-3 in the 6th. As Tim Renning gets up again in the Mets bullpen.
And of course, it'll be interesting to see, won't it, as Redding gets loose. You know, been a starting pitcher since he started the season. Now we'll have to get up 2-3 times to get loose and see what repercussions that has as Jerry swipes at the dirt in front of him in frustration, I'm sure.
Now the base is loaded with 1 out for Hudson. And he takes a strike on the outside edge. Hudson singled to left, walked with the bases loaded, and doubled to left. He's driven in 2. He's scored a run, and he bats here with the bases loaded in the 5th. Checks the swing. He went around 0-2.
Well, 2 backdoor sliders here from Descends. This one check swing almost, but Hudson goes through, of course.
Manny Ramirez parked on deck. Dodgers have 10 hits tonight. Orlando Hudson is going to the All-Star game for the 2nd time in his career. One of 3 Dodgers selected, along with Jonathan Broxton, their closer, and Chad Billingsley, their ace right-hander. Just got a piece.
How about you, Gary? But he was the most interesting free agent to me, who was just left out there without any offers, really, till the Dodgers came late. And he's always been Gold Glove caliber player, always been a strong offensive player. You might say the last couple of years he sustained some injuries.
Right, late
always
season.
Great guy in the clubhouse. All the things you'd want in a player.
Well, despite his recent struggles, the Dodgers are thrilled to have Hudson on their team.
Another backdoor side. When he foul tips this ball, this will catch right on the thigh of Santos. That left thigh. Now, usually you won't see that happen because they'll stay in that crouch. But he put that leg down to get a real low target for Elmer Descends.
And Hudson grounds one weakly. Tatis coming home, and he gets the force play. Nicely done by Fernando Tatis to get the 2nd out.
Nice play here by Fernando on the run with the perfect strike. Ethier, of course, trying to take the legs of Santos out so he can't complete the double play. Nice play. It's interesting to see that play. We saw that earlier in Dodger Stadium Costa-Mezza game, a similar ball.
Right, the Jeremy Reed throw home. The last of the 5 errors that the Mets made in that 11-inning game. The same game that Ryan Church failed to touch third base. So for the 2nd straight at bat, Manny Ramirez bat with the bases loaded. He broke his bat and singled in a couple of runs in the 2nd inning. He had a bat after that and singled in a run in the 4th. So for the 2nd time in 4 at bats, Manny bats with the bases full.
Ramirez has a sense of stage, doesn't he? You see his career with the bases loaded.
20 grand slams. Only Lou Gehrig has had more.
Gehrig, what, 23?
Yep. And Manny pulls one foul.
This one really cost Pelfrey. Broke the bat of Ramirez, looped it into center field for a couple RBIs. And then when he's behind the 2 strikes, he's as good as there is in RBI situations of hitting that ball to right field, plating Hudson.
Started out with the Indians and with Boston for nearly 8 years before landing with the Dodgers last season. Sends out lunging at that slider, and it's 1-2.
He's taking him up a notch with Los Angeles, but just look at the average, right on par with Cleveland and Boston. RBIs. off the planet.
Same pitcher was called out on in the first inning. This time less of an argument. Only equipment flipped by Manny, and John Hirschbeck just looked at the equipment. He flipped it and threw him out of the game. Manny gets ejected after taking his elbow guard and flipping it up in the air in the general direction of the home plate umpire. Hirschbeck was not sure at first that it actually had happened, then looked behind him, saw the equipment on the ground, turned, and threw Manny Ramirez out of the game. The inning comes to an end, as has Manny Ramirez's night. Well, he hasn't been playing third game since he came back anyway. Takes an early exit with the Dodgers leading 5-0.
Zone with Manny Ramirez all night long, and just has opened up that plate. And once this arm guard was flipped in the direction of Hirschbeck, I'll see you later.
Now, could it be that, I don't want to impute any motives here, but Manny Ramirez cheated the game, and John Hirschbeck has now called him out twice on pitches that clearly look like balls. And I don't know if John's going on a crusade. Well, but is there any connection, perhaps? Juan Pierre takes over in left field for Manny.
Hirschbeck has had a very generous strike zone all night, maybe even a little more generous against Mr. Ramirez.
Well, Manny had 3 at-bats in his last game Saturday. He got 4 at-bats today. And now he's done. Really sat out on Sunday.
Yeah, it's really been his workload to get 3-4 at-bats and to the clubhouse.
Well, maybe there was some intent on his part.
Well, remember, he had an opportunity to play in 10 minor league games, only played in 5.
Evans walks on 4 pitches. Kershaw issues just his 2nd walk of the night. If you check out the 5th inning recap, Kershaw has been terrific. He's allowed just 3 hits and struck out 6. Mike Pelfrey, very strange outing for him, got touched up. That time he scored since Saturday. And they're down 5-0 as Omir Santos steps in. Santos struck out his first time up.
Sorry, Gary, that run they got on Saturday was provided by an RBI single by Fernando Nieve.
It's true. When's the last time a position player drove in a run? You got to go back to Friday night, when Brian Schneider drove in a run
with a double, right?
Yep, off Rodrigo Lopez, last man he faced in the 7th inning Friday night. Santos struck out his first time up. Reyes out on deck to bat for El Elmer descends. Reyes, the only right-handed bat available on the Mets bench tonight. Playing all available right-handers against Kershaw. Tim Redding getting ready to pitch in the 6th inning. He's already thrown a game out there in the bullpen, hasn't he? And Santos fouls off another one.
For you fans who don't know it, of course, Tim Redding has spent a lot of time in the bullpen, so it's not like he hasn't done it before. Although starting pitcher all of last season with the Washington Nationals.
Yeah, really his only real big league relief work came with Houston, and that's 5 years ago. Breaking ball hit slowly. Hudson makes the flip, and Furcal with that strong arm turns over the double play. 4-6-3 on the double play, 2 out and nobody on.
Well, you see, watch this flip by Hudson, very quick, and Furcal with the bare hand. That was the reason that was turned so quickly. The only way you can do that is you get to know your second baseman. You know that toss is going to be a soft one. And Furcal, of course, with a turn.
Almost looked like Hudson had enough time to take that himself.
Yeah, I think he was in between. He didn't know what to do, and he thought that, I think if he took it by himself, he might have been taken out by the runner. I think that's why he gave it to Furcal.
Now Argenis Reyes, 1 for 12 since joining the ball club, and he takes a strike. Fastball over matches Reyes, 1-2. Strike 3 called. Kershaw has his 7th strikeout in the first 5 innings. And the Mets are turned aside. That's 18 straight innings for the Mets without a run. Still 5-0 LA. Time for Dunkin' Donuts Ask the Booth. Justin from Washington Crossing, PA wants to know, Ronnie, what causes a pitcher to lose velocity during a season?
Well, Justin, I'll tell you, that's a very good question. There's a few different reasons. One, if a pitcher's not doing his work in between. I'm just taking a starting pitcher. If he's not doing all the running and stuff that you need to do, the hot or the heat of the summer, then sometimes you can lose velocity. I think there's certain times of the year that you go through those dead arm periods.
Casey Blake hits one deep to right, and back goes Sheffield to reel it in on the warning track. Nice retreat by Sheffield for the first out.
I think for a lot of pitchers, Justin, it can come down to the fact that over the course of the season, you're going to have your good stuff, you're going to have your bad stuff. You have to learn how to win with both. As Tim Redding, of course, is going to appear in relief. 1-3 was his record. That high ERA. He had some good games and bad games, didn't he? It wasn't like he could get any real consistency.
His first good game was against the Dodgers in LA. Remember, he had 2 bad starts to begin his Mets career.
And he gave up 2 runs in the first, and then he was almost perfect after that.
Only allowed 2 hits in that game. That was the game the Mets eventually lost in 11 innings in Los Angeles. James Loney is 0 for 3 tonight, and he takes a strike. And Redding's last outing as a starter was in Pittsburgh in the makeup game on Thursday and got knocked out in the 3rd inning, a game the Mets would eventually rally and win. In fact, that's their last win. 2-1 to Loney.
Interesting comment by Redding, of course. Took it like a pro. Said, hey, listen, you know, I didn't pitch well enough to keep my spot. I have to go out in the bullpen and be ready to help this team.
And really, from the start of spring training this year, that was always a possibility as Loney grounds one to the right side. Tatis gets back to cover, and they're 2 out. I mean, Redding was signed for a fairly nice contract, and so it was a given he was going to be on the team if healthy. But it wasn't a given that he was going to win the 5th starter's job. And if he'd been healthy, he might have been in the bullpen from day one.
Well, I think he thought at some, not he didn't think, but you thought when you looked at the spring training roster that maybe through default, but Livan Hernandez came out a firing and hasn't stopped, you know, save for his last start in Philadelphia. Livan has been a great surprise.
A real tower of strength for a team that needed him so badly with the injuries to John Maine and Oliver Perez. Russell Martin is 2 for 3 tonight. He's stolen a base. He's scored a run.
John Maine, for you people at home, is in Florida, and he has just started the throw on flat ground. One of the walking wounded for the Mets. And walking would be the key word, I guess.
Throwing on flat ground, that's a long way from pitching in a game.
Yeah, that's just, you know, literally playing catch to see if it hurts. That's what it is.
John got more than a week off after the last pain that he felt. Little fist job taken on a hop by Cora, and a 1-2-3 inning for Tim Redding. His first inning out of the bullpen is a successful one. Still 5-0 LA. Clayton Kershaw has topped out at 96 miles an hour. The Mets starter Mike Pelfrey at 94 tonight. That's as fast as they've gone.
You know, I just mentioned John May, and as Kershaw has been outstanding so far. We also had some news about the other guys. Carlos Delgado, which is good news, is now hitting the ball off the tee. Carlos Beltran has been on the bike and in the pool. Martinez, of course, Fernando Martinez had his right knee checked on. He had just a little bit of swelling, but he seems to be ready to play. And of course, J.J. Putz, no throwing yet. And you mentioned one guy, of course, guy almost forgotten. He played such a big role here the last 3 years. Billy Wagner. He's throwing to hitters.
Throwing to hitters down in Florida. No timetable on getting him into a game, and right now they're being cautious with Billy and saying late August, early September, but there's a chance he could be back earlier than that. Luis Castillo takes a strike, and of course the fear right now for this team, and it's not the fear of the players playing right now, they're concentrating on playing, but the fear for management has got to be whether the Mets can keep contact with first place, or at least with a playoff position, be within contention when they start getting some of these guys back.
Because someone's going to make a run, and you have to be ready to tag along if they make that run, whether it's Philadelphia or whomever.
Vercal backs off the plate and throws out Castillo for the first out. 1 out and nobody on. Time to check in with the studio. Chris Carlin standing by with the New York State Smokers Quit Line game break. All right, Phillies trying for their 5th straight tonight. Tied up in that game with the Reds. Here's Alex Cora, and he takes outside ball 1. Cora's hit the ball hard twice tonight. Lined out for Vercal at short, and then single to left center. Castillo tried to go first to third on the play, and Matt Kemp gunned him down. Cora's hit was the last for the Mets. They've had just 3 tonight. 2-0 now to Alex. Kershaw has walked 2. He struck out 7. 21-year-old left-hander, and his pitch count up to 90 on the night. And watching Kershaw tonight brings to mind the fact that all of a sudden there is a lot of good young pitching talent around the major leagues. I mean, we noted Sunday when they announced the All-Star team the number of first-time players on the All-Star team.
Well, Alex Zimmerman from Washington for his stuff. Gallardo, we just saw him against the Mets, has been outstanding. Johnny Cueto, if you can take the start away yesterday with the 10 first-inning runs, has made the All-Star team. Kershaw, of course, we're watching tonight. You just see his stuff. And Tommy Hansen's been almost unhittable so far for Atlanta. And I'm leaving out. Now, I'm leaving out guys who have a little more experience. I'm leaving out guys like Hamels, Lincecum, Kane, Billingsley, Happ, Josh Johnson, who's pitching tonight. It's loaded. I didn't even mention Edison Volquez for Cincinnati with Cueto. Those things seem to come in streaks, don't they, Gary?
Yes, they do. Laura flares 1 out to left field, and Juan Pierre is there to grab it for the 2nd out.
You know, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that when Manny Ramirez went down, Juan Pierre took up the mantle and played probably some of his best baseball he's played in the major leagues.
And really burnished his reputation in L.A. because, you know, Pierre was a guy who got a big contract, 5-year deal, $44 million, and was vilified in Los Angeles that first year of that contract because, let's face it, they probably overpaid for him. But the things that Juan can do can really help you win. Here's David Wright, who's walked and flied out 0-for-1.
Here's a guy that can be an everyday player, but did he squawk or say a word? No, he didn't. Kept his mouth shut, waited for his chance again. And when Manny had to take his suspension, he was outstanding.
And throw in the fact that Juan Pierre works as hard as anybody in the game.
He's one of those guys that you look at, being a former player, Sheffield on deck. You say to yourself, you know what, I would like to play with him.
David Wright hitless in his last 14 at bats.
Very interesting with this lead of 5-0. David Wright 1-1 pitch. Kershaw with the cutter. A pitch that he is working on now because he has such a big differential between his curveball and his fastball. Trying to work on that little cutter to the right-hander so he can lower his pitch count, have some balls put in play, and get some ground balls.
Two. David keeps fouling off those fastballs. Wright has been stuck on 99 hits for the season for almost a week. The 100th pitch of the night from Kershaw is a curveball that misses, ball 3.
You know what's interesting is that a lot of times you have players come up with 5 tools and you don't ever see the 5 tools. Well, sometimes you have pitchers come up and they say he has an ace fastball and an ace curveball. Very rarely do you see it. Young Mr. Kershaw has it.
Hudson in front of that ground ball, and Kershaw sets the Mets down 1-2-3 in the bottom of the 6th. On to the 7th, 5-0 LA. Pitches through 6 innings, 6 shutout innings, 6 dominant innings, and he'd love to see him go out there for the 7th, but the way the game is played now, 21-year-old pitcher, not likely to see him in the 7th.
Yeah, and he'll have one more start before the All-Star break on Sunday, so I thought he might go out there because he had an extra day's rest pitching in this game, but no, not to be.
There's Matt Kemp, who lifts one to center field, and Church has it lined up. So quickly, Redding's retired the first 2 in the 7th, and Redding set down 5 in a row since coming on. So Kershaw is done. His turn in the batting order coming up, and there's no batting helmet to be found for him. So Blake DeWitt will come up to pinch hit. Or will he?
Well, Joe Torre is talking to Blake DeWitt. Very interesting. Might be saying that Blake needs you really maybe to take a pitch here. James McDonald might not be ready. Oh no! Now he's saying, as you see, Schaefer, Bob Schaefer, the bench coach for Joe Torre, has just told Blake DeWitt it's all right to swing now. McDonald's ready. The little nuances that happen in the game could have put DeWitt behind in the count.
DeWitt, who was such a pleasant surprise for the Dodgers last year, wound up as their starting third baseman and did a terrific job. This year spent most of the season in the minor leagues. Just recently recalled, he's had just 19 at bats with the Dodgers this year. DeWitt.
He had a big home run last year against the Mets. Remember that one? Was it an inside the park home run that Ryan Church went back on the scoreboard in L.A. and it was one of the points where he hurt his head, of course.
Driven to deep right field. Back goes Sheffield looking up, and that ball is out of here. Off the overhang on the Pepsi porch. Blake DeWitt hits his first home run of the season. A pinch hit home run, and the Dodgers now up 6-0.
DeWitt tripping, crossing home plate.
Well, whatever Joe told him before that at bat kind of worked, I think. A bomb from DeWitt. Trying to go inside with this little cutter. Line drive off that subway sign.
No replay necessary. DeWitt hit 9 home runs last year, and then he'll hear about that. So Redding, after retiring 5 in a row, gives up the home run to make it 6-0 LA. Recall for the 5th time. DeWitt was such a pleasant story last year. A guy who was 4th on the depth chart going into spring training, wasn't even a consideration. But then Nomar Garciaparra got hurt, Andy LaRoche got hurt, and somebody else in that rotation there got hurt as well.
Yeah, they had one more player.
And then they wound up replacing him when they picked up Casey Blake from the Indians, but then DeWitt played some second base late in the season and did well enough there. It's got to be awfully hard for a guy like that who had such a good rookie season to then go back to the minor league.
I think the problem for a young guy like that is that the team knows he belongs in the big leagues, and he knows he belongs in the big leagues, but there's just no room for him.
Certainly not once they got Orlando Hudson. He might have been the second baseman this year had they not signed Hudson late. 3-2 to Furcal, and he pops one up. Playable for David Wright.
That retires the side, but Blake DeWitt adds to the Dodger lead with his first home run of the year. A pinch hit shot off the Pepsi porch. 7th inning stretch time.
Your Mets upcoming schedule. Remember, all Mets games on SNY are available in HD, presented by IOTV. 2 more with the Dodgers, then 3 with the Reds, and then those precious 3 days off. Boy, do the Mets need those. And then a long road trip coming out of the All-Star break. 4 in Atlanta, 3 in Washington, and 3 in Houston once the break is over. And if you're in the car, be sure to listen to every Mets game on Sports Radio 66 WFAN as James McDonald comes on in relief for the Dodgers.
Well, I see his numbers are high so far. He had a couple tough outings, and it's not 13 games. But McDonald is one of those bright stars. 6 starts he made in Albuquerque. He is a starter by trade. That's where they're going to want to move him at some point. Right now, as is the Los Angeles Dodgers want, they usually take their young stars and start them in the bullpen.
Gary Sheffield will lead off the home 7th inning. Sheffield called out on strikes twice against Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw went 6, allowed no runs, 3 hits, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, 101 pitches, and in line for his 6th win of the year.
Very rarely do you see it, but the same kind of pitcher from the right side here. Here's McDonald. Hard fastball, 94 and up, and overhand curve.
Hit hard right through the box and into center field. And the Mets have their 4th hit of the night. A leadoff single for Sheffield on the 7th. So Gary snaps out of an 0 for 8. And Fernando Tatis will step in.
Well, this ball is supposed to be down and away. Anything up in the strike zone we've seen from Gary. Just has that great top hand. Gets on top of that baseball, and with that top spin makes his way easily through the infield.
Tatis is grounded to short and flying to right. He's 0 for his last 10. And he takes a strike. Brian Stokes begins to throw at the Mets bullpen. Jim Redding's worked 2 innings in relief. Probably could go out there for a 3rd, but the Mets might get down to his spot in the batting order. And the breaking ball gets away from Martin, but not far enough for Sheffield to advance. Now, despite the home run by DeWitt, you'd have to say an encouraging first bullpen outing for Redding, especially since he had to get up a couple of times.
Yeah.
Making that adjustment. And the curveball in for a strike to Tatis, 1-2. James McDonald is just 24 years old. He might have gotten to the big leagues earlier, but he was drafted in 02, and he started to develop elbow problems in 03, so the Dodgers decided to make him an outfielder. And he spent 2 years playing the outfield in the minor leagues, which kind of set back his development as a pitcher. He probably would have stayed in the outfield, but he didn't hit much, so they moved him back to the mound, and he's been able to stay away from arm problems since, and here he is, striking out Tatis for the first out of the inning.
Well, a good fastball here by James. Up in the strike zone. Foul tip by Tatis. Held on to by Martin. You watch McDonald a little bit. It reminds me a little bit of Pedro's brother, Ramon Martinez. That long arm action. That good breaking ball.
Has that same kind of height that Ramon had. There's Ryan Church, 0 for 2 tonight. Struck out, grounded out, 0 for 10 since that strong start to his road trip. Double play ball. Hudson to Furcal, and on to first. 4-6-3 on the double play to end the inning. Mets have hit into more ground ball double plays than any team in the National League. 7 in the books at Citi Field, 6-0 LA. minutes of what matters the most to you. The latest news on all things New York sports. Grant Hill playing for the Knicks next year. Big Giants offseason acquisition getting suspended. All that stuff and a lot more on Geico Sports Night tonight after the post game and at 1 a.m. right here on SNY.
Didn't the Knicks have a chance at Hill 10 years ago?
That would have been a lot better than that.
Brian Stokes in the game, of course. 32nd game this year.
Orlando Hudson leads off and pops the first pitch foul. It's been a good night for Hudson. 2 for 3 and a walk. He's driven in 2 runs. He's scored 1. It'll be Hudson, then Juan Pierre and Casey Blake for the Dodgers in the 8th. Yeah, that's a good fastball for a strike by Stokes. 0-2. Mike Pelfrey lasted just 3 innings plus today. 5 runs, 4 of them earned, 8 hits. Elmer descends, 2 scoreless in relief. Tim Redding 2 innings, 1 run in relief as Hudson goes down on strikes. And the Mets continue to pound the Dodger left-hand hitters inside.
Well, if you're watching this game in the bullpen and you see that strike zone, that is the part of the plate where Mr. Hirschbeck, the home plate umpire, is giving a little leeway. So pound it all night long if you can, because you're going to get a little off that plate.
Now, as a pitcher, when you look at umpires, do you tend to see them call, in other words, the part of the plate that's to Hirschbeck's right, inside to lefties, outside to righties? We saw him call Manny out on strikes twice. Does that tend to be the case with most umpires, that they'll call one side of the plate?
They usually call outside better than inside, to tell you the truth.
Pierre socks one to deep right center. Sheffield back, and it's over his head and off the wall and bouncing away from him, and Pierre will head for third. Well, Juan Pierre up for the first time in the game, cracks a 1-out triple. 4th triple of the year for Pierre.
Well, you usually don't see this kind of power as he hits it off the fence in right center field from Juan Pierre. More of a singles hitter, but beautiful long strides. He kind of caught up here at second base, had to take the long way away. I mean the long route. But stand-up triple.
Well, Pierre has not hit a home run this year. If he hit that same ball in a different ballpark, he'd have his first home run of the year. Now the Mets bring the infield in with Casey Blake at the plate.
Got to get back to you on the umpires. It used to be a day when you would look at the sheet, who was umpiring behind the plate, you knew exactly what he'd call, where he liked to call, where his strengths were, where his weaknesses were. I can get the inside corner of the right-handers with this umpire, maybe not with another.
You think that's different now?
I think it's different now because of Questec and the new technology they have now that rates and judges the umpires, is that the umpires are being positioned to be more of the same, as opposed to having their own kind of picadillos when it came to their own strike zone.
To Blake. Well, I think what happened, particularly in the National League before they unified the umpires, is that the strike zone kept getting wider and shorter. Little flare, center field. In comes Church, and he makes the slide and makes the catch, tagging his Pierre, and he will score to make it 7-0 LA. Second sliding catch for Church tonight. This time it looked like he misjudged it for a moment, forcing him to slide.
Yeah, this ball was hit off the end of the bat. By the time Brian got it in his sights, had to basket catch it with the 2 hands. Came up throwing, but of course Pierre, who has great instincts for this game, even if you think it's a base hit, stop at third and tag up, which he did.
So a sacrifice 5 for Blake, his 52nd RBI, as the Dodgers continue to tack on 3 in the 2nd, 2 in the 4th, 1 in the 7th, and now 1 here in the 8th. And James Loney, good changeup by Stokes, 0-1.
You see a less disciplined runner in that situation at the end of the bat will come off the base a little bit, thinking that it's going to be a base hit, but always ball in the air, less than 2 outs, back to third base. You can move from there.
Because you know if it drops,
you're in safe anyway.
Loney's gone 0 for 4 tonight. The only starting position player in the Dodger lineup who's not been on base. Tied up with Santos, and it's 2-1.
We've seen that from Stokes, haven't we? As he come along, he's went from the fastball slider pitcher to having that good change. We're working on it anyway. Mattingly and Loretta having fun in that Dodger dugout. Why not?
Good time to work on it in a 7-0 game. I mean, Stokes has been an important piece in that bullpen for the Mets lately, so it was a little surprising to see him come on in this situation.
Yeah, you thought Redding, because his at bat didn't come up, you thought he might go for the 3rd inning.
Mets are going to have to make a move tomorrow, with Oliver Perez coming off the disabled list. Essentially, right now, they've got 3 long men in the bullpen with Redding, Descends, and Mish. Although Mish has some value as an extra lefty, with the way he's pitched, he's kind of worked his way into that role.
Well, you almost need a couple lefties here against this Dodger team because it's situated in between the right-handed hitters. So you might need someone to get Loney out, then go to the right-hander and back to get Ethier out, the left-handed hitters.
Three-2. Pulled toward the hole and a base hit for Loney. Phil Loney joins the parade, his first hit of the night.
Well, that's 33.5 inches, 31 ounces on the end of that bat.
Let's check in with the studio. Chris Carlin is there. New York State Smokers Quit Line game break. Russell Martin bounces one foul. Let's try to stay in front of Atlanta in the standings. The Braves lead in Chicago 2-1 in the 6th behind Javier Vasquez. So if Braves win and the Mets lose tonight, the Mets would fall into 4th place. 1-1 to Martin, who is 2 for 4 on the night. Vasquez has been just terrific this year. I'll tell you what, the way the Braves have pitched this year and with the emergence of Tommy Hanson, you have to not count them out.
They're also going to get Hudson back in August.
Yeah, but how much of Hudson?
Well,
Tommy John.
Yeah.
You always have to put a caveat with
You're
those
right.
guys. But still, even without him, if you look at the depth in their rotation with Hanson now joining Jurgens and
Vasquez pitching tonight. Kawakami's held his own.
He has, and you know they have struggled for offense most of the year, and Jeff Francoeur looks like he's on the way out there, but it seems like they've kind of righted themselves, and they may be a factor.
Well, McLeod has added some depth to that lineup. There's been talk that the Braves are talking to the Oakland A's about Mr. Holliday. That would be interesting.
And Kochman's been big for them.
Yes,
it's really helped. Even though Brian McCann, it's an all-star year, hasn't been his best year. 3-2, runner goes and it's fouled off. And then you look at the Marlins and their depth of starting pitching, and you figure that can keep them around, even though they have so many other questions with their bullpen and their defense. So it's not as though the Mets are only competing against one team right now.
Well, all those teams should thank the Nationals for having that little buffer that makes them feel good about themselves.
It's a long way to fall. Again, the 3-2 bounce foul. I mean, nobody's got a great record in this division, certainly, but talking about the potential of all these teams to play well in the second half.
Well, Well, it's like, you know, when you saw 2007, was the Colorado Rockies, was that their year where everyone was kind of stagnant, and then they made a run. Now, they made a historic run, of course, but the same could happen in the National League least, I call it sometimes. Someone make a run, and there's 4 teams that could do it.
Martin works out a walk on the 8th pitch of the at-bat, and that prolongs the inning for Stokes. So 2 on and 2 out, and Andre Ethier coming up. Ethier is 1 for 3. He singled back in the 5th inning.
You see that average is down, but when Manny Ramirez first went on his suspension, Ethier went through quite a slump, and he always batted behind Ramirez, so I don't know if how much of an effect that was. But he's hitting the clutch. He has 4 walk-off hits.
Well, the RBIs are up. He leads the Dodgers in runs batted in with 54, despite the fact that he's hitting just .251. Came into the night with just a 136 career batting average against the Mets, which is the 4th lowest among active players.
See him talking to himself right now. Missed the pitch to hit. Punches fastball right on the outside part. Just a little late was Ethier.
Ethier recently had a game where he hit 3 home runs in a ball game. 3 of the 16 he's hit this year. Up and away, and it's 2-2. Stokes has already thrown 28 pitches here in the 8th inning. Pat Mish gets up in the Mets bullpen. Back in the 2nd inning, Mike Pumphrey had an inning where he threw 42 pitches. 2-2. And Ethier takes it down. 3-2. 3rd straight batter against whom Stokes has run a full count.
Usually don't show the pitch count here, but it's interesting with a reliever like Stokes, the guy that can pitch the 8th inning in Cincinnati, jumps ahead of Philadelphia. The reason I mention that is that, you know, maybe if Stokes gets to a certain pitch count, he might not be available for tomorrow.
Ramon Hernandez with an RBI single in that 9th inning for Cincinnati. Off Brad Lidge to give the Reds the lead. Again, the 3-2 to Ethier, and again fouled off.
Lidge not quite fixed yet, huh?
Well, Joey Votto led off that inning with a double. When he's been available, he has been so good for Cincinnati.
He's still over 360. He's close to that, right? The other day I looked, he was batting 366 or something.
Yep, the season got off to a bang this year against the Mets, and he's only been stopped by his own stress issue. Another foul ball from Ethier. Another long turn at bat against Stokes, who just can't seem to put this inning to bed. This will be the 9th pitch of the at-bat. And there'll be a 10. They go. because the bat is turning into better robotic.
Oh.
The 11th pitch of the at bat, and Ethier checks his swing and takes it low, and the bases are loaded. So Stokes loses that battle as well. He walked Russell Martin after a long confrontation, and he walks Ethier to fill the bases for Matt Kemp. A slog of an inning for Mr. Stokes. Kemp is 2 for 4 today, and also was robbed of a hit on a nice sliding catch by Church back in the 3rd. The Dodgers have 13 hits, and they've now drawn 6 walks.
Probably has the most important throw of the game, though, hasn't he? Just when a chance when the Mets looked like they might have a chance to get back into it early. Pegged out Castillo at third base.
Mets were down 3-0 at the time. Would have had the tying run coming to bat, but for Kemp's throw. Loney's at third, Martin at second, Ethier at first for Kemp, who already has 2 grand slams this season. And a nice stop by Santos to save a run.
Well, interesting. I don't think I saw anyone check. I thought he went run around on the swing there, did Mr. Kemp.
I don't think anybody asked Wally Bell.
That's what I'm saying. Let's check it out. Pitch down and away. Well, he's got the strength to hold that bat back. I was wrong.
Well, you were wrong to ask.
I always ask.
And Kemp fouls back the fastball, 2-1. Well, how often do you have 2 pitchers for the same team in the course of the same game have 40 pitch innings? Stokes is only up to 38, but he's getting there. And Kemp takes the slider outside, and now it's 3-1, and Stokes will throw his 40th pitch in this inning. Mark Loretta out on deck. The bat for the pitcher, McDonald. Mets have already issued 1 bases loaded walk in this game. That was to Hudson by Pelfrey back in the 2nd. 3-1 to Kemp, and he walked him to force in a run. The wheels are all falling off. 3 straight walks by Stokes, and it's 8-0 LA. Jerry Manuel will hand the ball to the next guy. Stokes unable to complete the 8th inning. Pat Mish will come on to relieve him, with the Dodgers having built an 8-0 lead. makes his first start in a couple of months. He'll be opposed by Hiroki Kuroda. 6:30 the coverage. KFC pregame live tomorrow night right here on SNY. Pat Mish will be the 5th Met pitcher of this game.
Well, Mr. Mish has done a nice job since coming up to New York. He's allowed 1 run in 7 games, 8 in the 3rd innings of work, and he's retired all 7 first batters faced. Mets would like to see that stay intact.
Had the misfortune in his last outing to come in to face Shane Victorino with 2 men on. Got a pop-up that Omir Santos dropped, and then Victorino got a base hit to drive in a run. Mark Loretta pinch hitting, and he takes a first pitch strike. Last Dodger pinch hitter was Blake DeWitt, who homered in the 7th inning off Tim Reddick. Now Loretta bats with the bases loaded. 2 runs already home in the inning. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Mets have gone 20 consecutive innings without scoring a run. To Loretta, who helped win a game for the Dodgers against the Mets in Los Angeles. It was Loretta who was playing 3rd base when Ryan Church missed the base, and Loretta was Johnny on the spot to point it out quickly to the umpire. 2-1 now to Loretta.
Of course, these Dodgers would know a little bit more about Pat Mish. Came over from the San Francisco Giants, their arch rival. Loretta, this is his 4th at bat against Pat.
Now it's 2-2 to Loretta. The 8th man up in the inning with Rafael Furcal on deck. Who was that? It's like
Number 49, Gary. Brent Leach.
No, it's Claudio Vargas. Leach is a lefty.
Okay.
Claudio Vargas used to pitch for the Mets.
That's right.
There you go.
And Milwaukee.
Popped up. Mish calling. Right coming. Calls him off. Inning over. 2 more runs for the Dodgers. Middle of the 8th. 8-0 LA. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by IOTV. Get the best in HD free with IOTV. By Citi, by Toyota, by StubHub, and by Fox Business Network. Opportunity pure and simple. Claudio Vargas, who made 4 starts for the Mets last year, now pitching in relief for LA.
But the spring training with the Dodgers, you see this is his first game. Vargas. Good sinking fastball, good slider. One of those guys that can be your long man and also get an occasional start.
Just came off the disabled list. Missed the first half of the season with elbow tendonitis. So the 31-year-old right-hander will take over the pitching for the bottom of the 8th. And that's a perfect spot. You got a guy coming back with the DL. He's been out all year. You look for the right place to put him in to get his feet wet, and you can't find a space better than this in an 8-0 game in the 8th inning.
Yeah, you like these games to bring some of your players back. Let's see if knowing this young man, as we see Keith.
What is that?
Keith's been working out since he left here on Friday, by the way.
What is that?
He is roping a steer as a caveman with no chest hair.
He's taking the bull by the horns. Somebody's got to. Nick Evans takes high ball 1.
That's what his old do too.
You know, last night we had the night off, so I got a chance to flip on Seinfeld at 11 o'clock.
Nice.
Sure enough, it was the Keith.
It was.
Just can't get away from him. Evans has been aboard twice with a bloop single and a walk. One of 4 hits for the Mets tonight. And there's a strike from Vargas, 2-1. Well, finally in Philadelphia, the Reds bounce back after being beaten 22-1 by the Phillies last night.
All I can think of is Al Pacino. Every time I want to get out, they want to pull me back in. It's Philadelphia with a loss tonight.
Vargas with the 2-2, and Evans smokes one to right field, but right there is Ethier waiting for it. 1 out. The first time Nick's been retired tonight. 1 out and nobody on. And where's Santos coming up? Santos 0 for 2 is struck out and grounded into a double play.
Gary, I wanted to mention this. I was out and around yesterday doing something, and I was reminded of one of our good friends. Just a little bit over a year, the anniversary of the passing of Jim Plummer. And I was out near where his final resting place is now, and I was thinking of Plum. And just recently, a lot of his coworkers got together here that work at City and were wearing those colors and talking about all their great stories of Jim, which of course they are many. Too many to mention. But my own relationship with Plum, very interesting. In '83, of course, I came up and made 5 starts in September. And in the off season, he took me under his wing. I decided to stay in New York and work out here. It's now defunct, but the Downtown Athletic Club was my home every single day of the week.
Santos bangs one off Vargas. He was able to recover and make the play.
Said I came off the DL for this.
Not sure where that ball struck him.
And with O'Meara struggling, just a bad break there. Hit him right in the hip, it looked like, Gary.
And the Dodgers will send the trainer out to see if Claudio's okay.
He was able to get that out. I was just finishing in 1983. In those days, minimum salary was $27,000. So I got myself a little 6-story walk-up. Going to try to pay for that apartment. Jimmy Plummer was nice enough to send me all around the different 5 boroughs of Queens. I did bar mitzvahs, I did Little League dinners, I did everything you could do to make a little bit of cash to pay for that apartment. And you know what? It was the best thing I ever did. A kid from Boston who did not know New York came here, was taken all around the different boroughs, got to meet all the different Mets fans from all those different boroughs. And, you know, it was a time when the Mets weren't very good, so they were looking for anyone, any hope that maybe you will be the answer or part of the answer. And it was the best thing I ever did because I spent the entire winter here. And then that next spring, New York was out of the equation. It wasn't a tough place to play. It was my home.
Because you knew who the people really were.
Exactly.
It wasn't a big monolithic, scary New York anymore.
And without Jim Plummer, that wouldn't have happened. And Jimmy represented everything that's great about the young people. I mean, the people that you don't get to meet here when you come to watch these great ball players. The dedicated workers here at City. And this last year, we've had to put in a lot of extra work because coming into this new ballpark. Just dedicated workers here.
Sean Green up in the bullpen for the Mets as Daniel Murphy gets set to bat as a pinch hitter. Now, one thing is for certain that anybody who's been associated with the Mets over the last 30 years has warm memories of Jim Plummer. He was impossible not to like. Murphy hitting at .242. Not getting the start tonight with the Dodgers throwing a left-hander. And Murphy watches up and away, 2-1. Clayton Kershaw went 6 innings for LA tonight, the 21-year-old lefty. Allowed just 3 hits, walked 2 and struck out 7. James McDonald pitched a scoreless 7th, and now Vargas trying to finish off the 8th. Carlos Beltran was in the ballpark tonight and talked quite a bit about watching this team play right now and what he's seen. And the one thing he said you can't really do anything about the hitting. He said the hitting's going to come, it's going to go. He said for this team to win, what they have to do is make plays, make base running plays, make defensive plays. But you watch this team offensively right now, and it's hard to see them having much of a chance the way they're swinging the bats. I mean, this team has not had an extra base hit in 3 straight games.
Well, I think that's really the problem, isn't it? The lack, and that's why Sheffield's in there every day, the lack of power. If you don't have a lot of power, you got to be able to do a couple things, Gary. You got to be able to bunch hits together, and you got to be able to run and take extra bases. And that's been difficult.
A shallow left. Pierre comes on to make the diving play, and that ends the inning. It's played by Juan Pierre. As Vargas is returned from the disabled list, results in a 1-2-3 inning. Dodgers on the top of the batting order coming up in the 9th. They lead at 8. To SNY, Chris Carlin and Bobby Ojeda have all tonight's highlights, exclusive interviews, Jerry's post-game reactions. We'll hear what game plan is to try and get the Mets out of the funk that they're in. Lincoln Mercury postgame live right after tonight's game and after all 162 Mets games right here on SNY. Sean Green comes on to pitch the 9th inning for New York.
39th game for Sean this season as he mops up here in the top of the 9th inning. As of late, especially that one outing he had in Philadelphia, his pitching has been much sharper as he's gone along here.
Met pitchers have already thrown 202 pitches in the first 8 innings. Rafael Furcal up for the 6th time in the game. 2 walks. He's reached on an error. 0 for 3 officially, but he scored 2 runs. And he slaps one to shortstop for Cora to handle. 1 pitch, 1 out. Well, the Mets have now been shut out for 21 consecutive innings. They were shut out on Sunday in Philadelphia 2-0. The last time the Mets were shut out in back-to-back games, you got to go back to May of 2005 when they were shut out twice in a row in Atlanta. First time by Tim Hudson, second time by Cal Davies. It's 4 long years ago. Ball 1 to Hudson. Pedro Feliciano over the bullpen. The Mets will have the top of the batting order coming up in the bottom of the 9th, just trying to avoid getting blanked. A-Rod is up as well.
Of course, for you people at home, they're up getting their throwing in because of the day off yesterday.
It's abused everybody else. DeScends went 2 innings in relief. Redding 2 innings. Stokes 2/3. Mish 1/3. And now Green pitching the 9th. There's a strike 1 and 2. I mean, if you're the manager right now, what are you going to do? I mean, you're going to throw your lineup in a hat and pick it out that way? Castillo gets in front of it. I mean, you can argue that the Mets have, they faced some good pitchers over this stretch, but, Jamie Moyer and Joe Blanton are not world beaters at this point in their careers. They're not guys who should be shutting you out on a regular basis.
Mike Burns, Rodrigo Lopez.
I mean, Kershaw, who started tonight for the Dodgers, is one of the, talented young pitchers in the game.
If you're a Mets starter right now, you're going to have to match zeros with the other starter. That's the key. And Mike wasn't able to do that today.
But even if he had, you have to have a hint of offense, and there's nothing there right now. I mean, we've said it a lot over the last few days. If David Wright is not hitting the way this lineup is currently constituted, it's hard to find other places where the offense is going to come from.
Well, that's why that, I mean, I know it's not a big play now because we're thinking about it's 8-0, but if Castillo makes the 3rd, Cora's the 2nd, then you got Wright in an RBI situation with a 3-0 lead. He's going to be pitched to by Clayton Kershaw. What can happen there? So it's we said that Murphy's Law made a lot of sense. It seems to go wrong at every turn.
Green gets him out 1, 2, 3 on 3 ground balls. Last chance for the Mets in the bottom of the 9th with the top of the batting order coming up, down 8-0.
Strong has worked 8 consecutive scoreless innings over his last 7 outings. Scoreless relief in 18 of his last 19 beginning May 22nd. ERA 0.40 over that time as Mota has found his niche.
It'll be Castillo, Cora, and Wright up for the Mets in the 9th inning. Well, the Mets have not sent more than 4 batters to the plate in any inning today. They didn't send more than 4 batters to the plate in 22 of the 27 innings in Philadelphia. So that's 30 of the last 35 innings. The Mets have had no more than 4 batters in an inning. Just gives you an idea of the depths of the offensive drought that the Mets are in right now. 21 straight innings without a run. And in most innings, just no chance for a run. I mean, you remember the bases loaded situation Wright had in Philadelphia when he bounced into the double play on Sunday.
Tatis at first and second with 1 out.
And that's been it over these last few games.
So he shut out 5 times this season, 6 of all of last year.
And this would be the 5th time in the last 22 games if they don't score in the 9th inning tonight. So now Mota ready to work in the 9th inning. Castillo 1 for 3, had an infield single in the 3rd, and then as Ronnie noted, he got thrown out at 3rd base trying to advance on Cora's single. And since that 3rd inning, the Mets have had only 1 more hit. There was Sheffield's leadoff hit in the 7th, and then he got erased in a double play. To Castillo. Tomorrow night, Oliver Perez makes his return from the disabled list. And the Mets will go up against Hiroki Kuroda, trying to find a way to fashion some offense. Right to fall. And Castillo drives one toward right center, racing over Ethier to track it down. Nicely done by Andre Ethier. Got a good jump on that ball for the first out.
Yeah, just took the best route. Really, being left-handed helped him make this catch going away.
With a loss tonight, the Mets would fall 4 games under 500. They have not been 4 games under 500 this year. They had been 3 games under on several occasions early in the year, and then after getting swept in Philadelphia. Here's Cora, who's 1 for 3, and he fouls it away.
You know, it's a little skewed, Gary, because in their last 14 games, if you look at it, they had that explosion of 11 runs in the every game. The 9 runs they scored in Pittsburgh. Those 2 games they scored 20 runs. And the other 12 they scored 19.
It's a hard way to win. There's a strike, 0-2 to Cora. And again, if they were getting airtight defense, great starting pitching, they'd have a chance to win, even with scoring 2 and 3 runs a game. But right now, that's not happening either. In tight to Cora, 1-2. I mean, right now, you'd have to say there is not a single area of the game in which the Mets are excelling. Well, kids can run the bases on Sunday.
There you go.
They'll score.
Met dash.
1-2. Popped it up. Hudson calling. And Cora retired, 2 out. And so the Mets are down to their final out of the night, on verge of being shut out in back-to-back games for the first time in more than 4 years. David Wright tonight has walked, flied to right, and grounded out to second base. David now hitless in his last 15 at bats as his odd season continues. Great hot streaks, barren cold streaks, and very little in between. David, since the 25th of June, is 6 for 45. And that 6 for 45 includes an 0 for 16 at the beginning and now an 0 for 15 at the end. 2-0 to right. Bounce foul, 2-1. Mets will stay 4.5 behind the Phillies, who lost tonight, but in danger of slipping behind the Braves, who lead 2-1 in Chicago in the 8th. Fouled away, and now the Mets are down to their final strike.
Mr. Lee has picked it up in Chicago, hasn't he?
And they've got Manny Ramirez back from the disabled list now. He made his return last night. That's going to be a big plus for them. I think the Cubs have got to be figured the favorite in that division.
The only problem is not getting a lot of good play from Soriano in left field or Bradley in right field.
Looks like they're going to drop Soriano into that leadoff spot for good now. 2-2 inside 3-2, but as poorly as they've played to be only 2 games out of first place, I think they're a far more talented team than the other contenders in that division.
And Zambrano's given them just about nothing. I mean, he's got 4 wins, but I think he's 4-3 at this point. So you know at some point he's going to turn it on.
He's hit better than he's pitched. 3-2 to right. Lifted in the air along the right field line. Ethier coming over, checks the stands and runs out of room.
We're going to see more of these right fielders. Watch this. Dead stop. As they get to learn that wall there in right field. No give. And it's at that right kind of height, isn't it? Like it's below the hip, above the thigh, that just really stops them dead in their tracks.
Well, it angles down there. That part doesn't bother me as much as the lower one, where you can flip over and really hurt yourself. Again, the 3-2 to right. Popped it up. This one will stay in play. Loney ready to grab it, and the ball game is over. And for the first time since May of 2005, the Mets have been shut out in back-to-back games. 22 innings without a run, as Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers combine on a 4-hitter and take the opening game of the series and hand the Mets their 4th consecutive loss.
Going back to the drawing board for Jerry Manuel after this game, and Joe Torre just more of the same. Now 23 games, over 500 for his Major League leading record, Los Angeles Dodgers. Kershaw was, as advertised, outstanding, and the Dodgers look like the best team in the National League.
Mets have now gone 3 consecutive games without an extra base hit, and we'll need to investigate when the last time that happened was. 22 innings without a run now. Mike Pelfrey lasted just 3 innings, his shortest outing of the year, as he takes